House yesterday, where they also discussed the need for a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. It says Vladimir Putin
happened.
I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. The shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in, or far ball, slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspect in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public has not been told the truth.
No, there's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's Friday. We've reached the end of yet another week, ladies and gentlemen. It's the final week of February, because guess what? Tomorrow it is the 1st of March, and I wonder what the Ides of March will bring for Keir Starmer. He's all over the front pages today, chumming up to his new best friend, Donald J. Trump, the 47th President of the United States of America, although it seems to me that we've got a clip we're going to show you a little bit later, which suggests that Keir Starmer doesn't realise he was the 47th and the 45th President of the United States. I don't know about you, but I watched yesterday's events in the White House with ever-increasing cringe and just awful kind of, feeling like my teeth were itching, my eyes were itching. I was trying to look at it sort of through my hands like this, going, oh my God, is he really actually doing what he's doing? He kept touching Donald Trump on the shoulder as if he'd been told to do it, because that's what Macron did. It looked really, really awkward. He touched him on the knee a couple of times. He produced a letter from the King as if it was some kind of pimping up of the royal family to go, oh, if you come to Britain, we'll get you an audience with the King and you can even stay in Balmoral and maybe have another child like Tony Blair did. I mean, I don't know what to say. The papers this morning have been very generous to Donald Trump. The Telegraph says Trump backs Starmer on Chagos. PM gives President letter from the King inviting him to stay at Balmoral. America would help any British peacekeeping force under fire in Ukraine. Trade deal with UK back on the agenda with pledge to finalise it quickly. Donald Trump did what he always does and what we said he would do. He behaved in a very charming way. He was a very generous host. He did all the right things. But in the end, he was very much in charge. And there are two ways of describing, for me anyway, what I think Donald Trump did to Keir Starmer. Basically, Keir Starmer looked, depending on which take you want to have, like a man who had been cuckolded by his wife, and the man who was doing that to his wife was actually the man he was shaking hands with and touching, and he didn't seem to realise that it was going on. Or you could take the view, as somebody tweeted at me just this morning, he was like a sort of uncertain young teenage girl at the prom. I mean, that was kind of how it felt, wasn't it? Emma Wolf is here. Emma, good morning. We'll be talking about this, of course, all the way through. Also, Gene Hackman, a very strange story, a sad story that we broke yesterday on this very show. Turns out that Gene Hackman and his wife had been dead for probably some weeks, and they were almost mummified in the way that they were discovered alongside their dog. We'll also be talking about migrants. It turns out that only 3% of people that come here illegally on small boats are actually being sent home and deported. And, of course, there's been a surge of asylum claims since July. Now, what else happened in July? Let me think. Was it the new Labour government? Yeah, absolutely right. Also, Katy Perry's blasting off into space with Jeff Bezos. I might be asking you to give us a list of names of people that you'd like to see blasting off into space with Jeff Bezos. I can give you a few. 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk about prisoners as well. We're going to talk about two-tier justice because, of course, the MP, Mike Amesbury, isn't now going to prison. It's absolutely ridiculous. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. 5 minutes past 6. Welcome to Morning Glory. By the way, we will continue our incredible quest to get those fantastic bumper stickers to you. If you've got one this morning and the postman arrives with it, stick it on your car, take a picture, send it in to us, and we will augment it and amplify it for you. Already the revolution of common sense is underway, and people all over the country are in receipt of these things. It's going to be great fun. Emma, very good morning to you.
Morning.
I can't really describe what I was feeling last night when I was watching Donald Trump and Keir Starmer. It was sort of compelling television because it was so awful. I was just kind of going, what's he going to do next?
From the moment that he sort of bounded out of his presidential car and was met by Trump and was just standing too close, everything you said,
and the smile,
and like, you're the first person I've properly spoken to since it happened because of the hours of our work. And I'm really glad that you're reflecting what I feel, that the papers have been very generous about this, that, you know, oh, this was a triumph, special delivery, all these headlines. I found it incredibly cringe. It was so clear that, A, Starmer has been terrified, I mean, and Starmer's team have been terrified about this for days. Yes, they've been... OK, of course there's strategising that always goes on before one of these meetings, but the wargaming, all of the kind of, OK, and if he says this is what how you react, the fact that he had to go with Jonathan Powell, with Morgan McSweeney, with David Lammy, the fact that he needed an entire team...
Lammy was sitting there saying nothing, right? What was he there for?
Starmer just was not in... He was not... He had no authority whatsoever.
No. And he barely spoke, did he?
He barely spoke.
Most of the questions were to Donald Trump from the press.
And he just held forth. And then Starmer sort of, you know, nervously giggled, touched him inappropriately.
The touching thing was really odd.
Really
kept
really
sort of reaching over to him and touching him on the shoulder. I found that really strange. We've got a load of clips, so let's start running through them and just seeing what happened. This is the one where I think he first touched him as he unveiled his pimped-up letter from the King. Have a check this out.
It's an invitation for a second state visit. This is really special. This has never happened before. This is unprecedented. And I think that just symbolises the strength of the relationship between us. So this is a very special letter. I think the last state visit was a tremendous success. His Majesty the King wants to make this even better than that. So this is truly historic, an unprecedented second state visit, and he wants to talk that through with you.
And that says at Windsor. That's really something.
Yes. What I haven't got yet is your answer. I do need to.
The answer is yes.
And then he takes the letter and says, thanks very much indeed. And then Starmer goes, you're supposed to open it. And then he has to open it and read it. And then he doesn't tell us what's in it. Doesn't read the actual contents of the letter. But there's too touching there. It's just, I'm sorry, you know, and he said, you know, the first state visit was a great success. Yeah, apart from the fact that Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, allowed somebody to float a plastic balloon of Donald Trump looking like a pig.
It was an
and apart from the fact that David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, who's sitting in the room, said that he was against the visit and that they should demonstrate against it, and the fact that Starmer himself said that he was anti-Trump at that time.
Yeah, exactly. And that was really all he had. I mean, to keep saying it's unprecedented, that was embarrassing. That was really, really embarrassing.
It was like a begging... It was like somebody from a terribly, you know, famous, sort of third world nation, trying to go, oh, please, Mr. President, would you mind coming to visit us, because that would really help us.
And exactly as you say, Mike, Trump was we knew what he was going to do, which is be a good host, which he is. He's charming.
Polite.
He wasn't patronising, but he was on the verge of patronising to Starmer. He was kindly to Starmer, because Starmer was so obviously sweating, bricks out of every pore.
But also he'd been obviously
terrified.
told by whoever his advisors are, make sure when you unveil the letter, and there's a slightly longer clip which shows him pulling it out of his pocket, and then tells him to kind of make sure you touch him as you give him the letter, and then make sure you touch him again.
He's awkward anyway.
None
Starmer
of it looks right, does it?
It doesn't look right, and at least Macron, he sort of does it in a Gallic way, which is like, stop touching my knee, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Starmer anyway isn't good body language.
Right.
I mean, you saw when he got out of the car, he stood too close. Trump was just completely relaxed and gave him a handshake and had come out to meet him, which was quite nice of him, because he didn't bother with Macron.
Yes.
And Starmer didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to stand. He doesn't know how to be, does he? He kept clutching people's hands in his clammy grasp.
Yeah, it just didn't look right to me, and I was sort of embarrassed that he's our leader. Really.
I know,
that's kind
of course,
how I feel.
of course.
I can't help that.
No, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that he's on the world stage representing us. I'm embarrassed that he goes, I mean, he just doesn't look the part.
Right.
And the fact that Trump was sitting forward in his armchair the whole time, and Starmer was sort of cowering back. It just, the optics were not good.
Yes.
But also, in terms of the substance, Mike, I mean, people are saying, oh, it was a triumph. Well, nothing went wildly wrong.
No.
But actually, nothing much was said.
Right.
And
I mean, the Chagos line, which the Telegraph have gone with, saying that, Trump basically backed Starmer on Chagos, I'm not sure that's not a bit of a stretch. I mean, he kind of said, oh, yeah, it looks like a good deal to me.
He said, it doesn't sound bad. He said, it's a bit early, but we need more details.
Yes.
He hasn't said yes or no. In terms of the trade deal, there isn't a trade deal. He said that we will have a good discussion about the trade deals, but he hasn't ruled out tariffs on the UK.
Right.
So it's not as though Starmer's gone over there and got some big win at all.
No, not at all. We've got more clips, so let's go through them. There's one here on UK-US trade deal negotiations. Check this one out.
He was working hard, I'll tell you that. He earned whatever the hell they pay him over there. But he tried. I think there's a very good chance that in the case of these two great friendly countries, I think we could very well end up with a real trade deal where the tariffs wouldn't be necessary. We'll see. But he earned whatever they pay him here and today. He was working hard at lunch, and I'm very receptive to it. I think in all fairness, in all seriousness, I think we have a very good chance at arriving at a very good deal. JD and Scott and Howard, all the people are working on it, and I think we have a good chance at arriving at a deal that could be terrific, really terrific for both countries. Okay?
Again, I always said that Trump was never going to put tariffs on Britain, but he just likes to make people sort of crawl to it.
Yeah.
He likes to humiliate people. He doesn't have to do the humiliation. They humiliate themselves. That's what happens. That's how Trump works.
Yeah, and it's very clear. He's not going to be involved in the negotiations. There will be detailed negotiations. They will push us hard. We will, we'll have to earn whatever we get. He's not saying no. He's saying, actually...
he's saying, give us, work harder, give us more incentive not to tariff you, basically, and we'll see what we can do.
He's saying we have a historically good relationship and we want to maintain that.
Yeah.
I mean, he really wasn't saying anything that any president wouldn't have said that.
No.
I don't think Starmer went over there and pulled off some charm offensive by any means.
No. I mean, Peter Hitchens said it to me yesterday. He said, this ridiculous notion that we have a special relationship with America finished during the Clinton era. It was very clear when Clinton allowed Jerry Adams to come to the USA, when he was considered to be a dangerous individual in this country, gave him, a massively warm welcome and a White House reception, and then basically dismantled Britain's role in Northern Ireland as a result of it. It was very clear then that basically there was no special relationship, and so there isn't now. I mean, Thatcher and Reagan had a special relationship between themselves, but the two nations haven't had one really for a very long time. Let's have a look at J.D. Vance, because he was also talking up Britain over at the Munich conference about its lack of freedom of speech. Let's have a look at this.
Look, I said what I said, which is that we do have, of course, a special relationship with our friends in the UK and also with some of our European allies, but we also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British, of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and, by extension, American citizens.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time in the United Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time. Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's absolutely right. But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud of our history there.
Yeah, really? You're very proud of locking people up for putting Facebook
Starmer can say it.
Yeah, but he talks absolute
That's what I mean. He can say it, but he's locking people up for Facebook posts.
He's lying. He's locking people up for Facebook posts. We'll come on to it later. Mike Ainsworth, the MP, went and appealed his case yesterday, which a lot of people are asking me, how has he got an appeal so quickly? Was there any intervention from the government?
Why is he still drawing his £91,000 salary?
And why has he managed to get an appeal through so quickly, which has now meant that he doesn't go to prison, which means that he doesn't necessarily have to quit his job? Because the sentencing is below what the threshold is for you to quit your job. There might still be a recall petition and there might still be a by-election, but it seems to me that this is all about Labour trying to stave off a by-election so that they don't get humiliated by reform. But Keir Starmer, they're saying, Britain's been very proud of its record on free speech for years and years and years and years. He's the man dismantling it. And when he says he doesn't want to impinge on American citizens, American companies, that's exactly what he wants to do. The Online Harms Bill says that they will clip the wings of places like Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. That's what it says.
But more than that, he's locking up our citizens for innocent comments, for literally just having opinions. I mean, he asserted himself a tiny bit there. Well done. I was talking to a body language expert who said, just look at Trump, sitting there, legs apart, power pose.
His legs crossed.
Cowering, legs crossed like a lady. Sorry, but like a lady.
Like a lady.
No, like a lady. I mean, well, let's not go there.
Let's not.
No. Absolutely. It was clear who was in control. And yes, Starmer spoke up. Oh, we have free speech in the UK. What does it mean? It's like going, we had Shakespeare in the UK.
But he only spoke up because he saw Macron do it. And you could tell that he was coached by whoever it is that coaches him to do an interruption, because that's what Macron did. Macron did it with a bit more style, to be fair. Make sure you touch him, because that's what Macron did. You know, make sure you kind of,
I know, the whole
smile
thing was
all the time.
Very staged.
It was just fake and it was staged and it was pretty sickening, actually. Let's have a look at him being interviewed by Fox TV, because in this clip, right, you will see that Starmer doesn't even understand that Trump was not just the 47th president, but also the 45th. Have a look.
Very good. Personal. We get on very well. We've met a number of times. We get on very well. And
you see President 45 different than President 47?
All presidents are different. They're all different. Like all prime ministers are different. But, you know, as I said, I think at the press conference, we come from different political traditions, but the president and I have got a lot in common. We get on well. I think we understand one another.
Is this what we're now down to? Like, we get on very well?
We get on very well.
Well, actually, Donald Trump couldn't give a stuff about you, mate. And also, the 45th and the 47th president are not different. They're the same person, you complete numpty. It's embarrassing, isn't it?
It is embarrassing. And he looks like he's sitting there in a job interview, doesn't he?
Yeah. And he's trying to impress Fox News because he doesn't want to upset them. I mean, it really is pathetic. I'm gonna have to read some of these. Mick says, Starmer was like a ventriloquist dummy sitting on Trump's knee. Ginny says, Two-Tier was so cringy yesterday, waving his little special letter around like he clinched the deal of the century. What's Trump playing, though? And Gary says, morning, Mike. Not just me, then. It was embarrassing. The lefties are falling over him this morning as some sort of messiah. I mean, the thing that I find
I think people are massively relieved. I think they're relieved. You could see the relief.
That he wasn't humiliated.
That it went okay, that it went fine.
But he was never going to be humiliated.
I know, but I think people were... because they were so worried about it, because Starmer is so lacking in any kind of authority, he's not able to do these big things. Everything goes wrong with him. So I think they're just relieved. It's that feeling of, God, well, that wasn't too bad.
Right. He managed to get in and out of the Oval Office without falling over.
He just looked really relieved. And
But, of course, we know that it's all lies and disingenuous because half of the left, of course, are hating the fact that they're having to go, oh, Keir Starmer did a great job with Donald Trump. Wasn't it great that Donald Trump got on so well with him? They hate Donald Trump.
Hang on a minute,
They don't want Donald Trump.
Wasn't he meant to go over there and tell him to, you know, sort himself out on Ukraine,
yesterday,
sort himself out on Putin, and suddenly it's all fine and they've got a great relationship. But they hate Trump, as you say.
Yesterday, it was all about, well, Starmer's going to go and warn Trump that he better make sure there's some security you know, arrangements in Ukraine. He didn't do anything of the sort.
Of course he didn't.
And let's just remind ourselves of what Starmer really thinks of Donald Trump. This is from, obviously, before he was Prime Minister, when he used to tell the truth.
Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner. but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
I mean, craven, hypocritical, lying, absolute and utter despicable behaviour.
And he's now claiming...
How does he get away with this?
They get on really well and they understand
Here's
each other.
Letter. Oh, actually, well, I mean, I should take... Oh, I've got banana for you, Mr President.
It really was that sad.
I mean, it was really pathetic, wasn't it? Let's get a voice note from Ian.
Hello, Mike. What a blinder Sir Keir played. Secured his second term, back of the net. Have a great day.
Yeah, secured another term for Donald Trump. I just find it so... I can't play this game. I know there will be people on other radio stations, on other TV stations this morning going, oh, didn't he do well? I mean, Dick Emery used to do a thing, that's one for the teenagers, you know, didn't he do well? It's just ridiculous. It's fake, it's hypocritical. I can't stand it. It's everything that I don't want Britain to be, right?
Absolutely.
Sucking up to somebody that you don't like.
Yep.
Now, I know he's a very powerful man, but there are ways of doing it.
You're right, and I would respect Starmer more if he'd said what he'd said in 2016 and gone over there and really, you know, socked it to the president. Right? Yeah, or if he'd gone over and really stood up to him.
I mean, of course, the irony is I'm actually pro-Trump, and the people, the lefties that argue with me all the time, who've been telling me how horrible he is, are all going to be sitting down today going, wasn't it marvellous? Isn't it fantastic?
Of course.
You know, isn't Keir done a great job?
Even The Guardian seemed to quite like Trump this morning. No, I mean, it's ridiculous.
It really is, because they're such hypocrites. They're dripping with absolute sanctimonious... treacle. It is quite pathetic. I might have to get a bucket to throw up in the break. By the way, if you haven't got one yet, do tell us when it arrives. The bumper sticker of all time, the home of common sense, the revolution of common sense is underway. This is Talk. There's no other place like it. It's the only place you get the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, because there'll be nobody this morning telling you that this was an absolute cringe fest of mammoth proportions where Keir Starmer was such a crawly, creepy, awful, horrible guy. He probably slithered out the bottom of the Oval Office when he left. He didn't actually have to go through the door. He just went underneath it because he's that oily. Oh, blah, blah, just disgusting. This is Morning Glory.
These are progressives, allegedly, right, in the SNP. And they are the ones who would say, we must protect women from all potential violence at any given time. These are the ones who will say health workers, nurses are heroic and you're not allowed to criticise them even when sometimes criticism is due. But oh no, in this instance, they have sided with a doctor who, by the way, doesn't need to get changed as it goes, but entering into a female space and getting changed, or more appropriately, While that nurse is getting changed, a male is there to look.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 25 minutes past 6. Emma Wolf is here. We're talking our way through the ridiculousness last night of that rather embarrassing and cringe-making appearance by Keir Starmer at Donald Trump's home, basically the White House, the President of the United States of America. Front page of the Mail says, what an unlikely bromance. Donald Trump and Sir Keir Starmer struck an unlikely bromance in the Oval Office. But actually inside, Quentin Letts, one of the great sketch writers of all time, writes some very, very funny and very amusing lines about how Donald played nice in his yellow chair in the Oval Office. He commanded the scene. Normal politicians block and obscure. Trump comes out and geezers headlines. Sir Keir reached into his jacket pocket and coyly produced a sleepover invitation from the King. It bore what looked like a postprandial handwritten Charles R. Maybe they had to give HM a few scoops of electric soup to get him to sign the damn thing. Because again, it sort of diminishes the King, doesn't it?
Of course.
You know, because they're using the King basically as a lever to try and invite Trump to come to Britain. Because you know how the fuss and nonsense they made about how, Keir Starmer's going to be the first European leader to see him. Well, he was the fourth.
Exactly.
Following on from Poland, France and Italy, right? And so this is almost like, you know, let's play the Trump card of, we've got a royal family, come and stay at Balmoral.
And it's the hypocrisy, Mike, when you put it like that and you think of everything that they've all said about Trump over the years, over the last 4 years, certainly 5 years.
Yeah.
And then and he sits there presidential like a lion, as you say, in his throne, and they all come scuttling over.
Yeah.
I mean, this week, what do we got? Macron, Starmer, they all scuttle in and out, paying homage to King Trump.
To the man that they all hate.
That they all hate.
That they've
it's
all
the
said that they hate.
Actually.
Because they're even so stupid that they didn't see what I saw, which was that he was going to get re-elected.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I said this from the beginning of the campaign.
I never doubted him.
Right? Never in a million years.
Well, because the American people know what's what.
They know what's what.
They can see what's happening.
And also we can see why Trump wins elections, because he actually says what he's going to do, and then he does it.
How it is, and he does it.
Unlike
and that's
any
what
of
they
our
voted for.
Exactly
and now people
right.
are going, you can't do this, you can't do that. Well, that's what they voted for, and that's what he said he'd do.
Yes.
And unlike Starmer, he didn't lie in his manifesto and then do everything different.
Right.
He actually told the truth.
I mean, it's actually embarrassing as well for Starmer and insulting to the British people for Starmer to say what he said. You know, Britain's had free speech for many, many years and it will have it for many more.
Well,
why are you locking people up for thought crime then? You complete and utter...
And I'm glad that JD Vance just repeated what he'd said and then just let Starmer respond.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't get into a war of words.
No.
JD Vance just said, well, I said...
Well, because JD Vance could see what's happening. Absolutely ridiculous. Let's have a look at Trump when Starmer tried to make out that Europe was going to be strong. And this is when he said, well, would you take on Russia yourself then?
Yeah.
Check it.
If they need help, I'll always be with the British, okay? I'll always be with them. But they don't need help. You look at their career, you have done very well over the years, haven't you?
We have. I'm very proud of our country. And but we've also always been there backing each other up between our two countries. That is why this is the greatest alliance for prosperity and security I think the world has ever seen. Whenever necessary, we've absolutely backed each other up, and that's at the core.
Could you take on Russia by yourselves?
Well...
Exactly.
Yeah, no.
No.
So basically that was a massive put down. That was like, stop talking absolute BS, mate.
Stop saying
stop
complete
pretending
nonsense.
That you're
Put your
backing
money
up.
where your mouth is. Yeah.
You're not backing up America.
Yeah.
America needs to be backed up by a poor, useless, hopeless, militarily denuded country which has been raped by politicians for the best part of the last 30 years and who have not built up our defences and who have not done anything to help America.
We barely have enough troops to defend London.
And
you know,
Trump, I'm sure in his mind there is thinking, you know, well, last time I was president, you were calling me a Nazi.
Exactly.
So stuff you, mate.
It was charming, but he made his point, didn't he, Trump?
Absolutely right. Let's have a look at another one, shall we? This is old Starmer, because you can't have a Starmer fest without some kind of stumbling over words. This is him stumbling over the word underline, which he seems to find difficult to say.
Finally, to underline the importance of this bond. It was my privilege and honour
to bring a letter with me today from His Majesty the King.
It was my privilege and honour to bring a letter from
and the problem is, mate, he says...
underline... I mean,
he says the opposite. He says the opposite of what he means.
Yeah.
It's like the sausages, but worse. Undermine or underline.
Yeah.
Because that's the opposite,
yes.
mate. And also, this is a real problem.
Yeah.
He cannot deliver a few words. I mean, I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
What is this? What is this?
We did this the other day. You know, I have delivered to undermine some. I mean, just.
It's a prime minister at the White House, and he can't learn a few of his closing remarks that he's going to make. It's all planned from the podium. He can't do that. He's constantly, nervously looking at his script.
I know. It's shocking,
so poor.
Isn't it? Absolutely shocking. Morning, Mike, says Lisa. I've never sat through anything and cringed so much. I thought Trump cut the press conference short and he didn't seem that happy to me. Lisa in Hertford. Margaret in Birmingham says, what a hypocrite. Tell me Tugendhat who removed the Winston Churchill painting. Mike, did you hear Donald Trump mention his accent? Pure class. Actually, we've got that clip. Let's talk about the accent. Have a look at this one.
And we look forward to welcome you in the United Kingdom. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. What a beautiful accent. I would have been president 20 years ago if I had that accent. Thank you very
much. No, there he's touching him again. It's just awful, isn't it? And the thing is, he actually complimented Trump on having statues of Churchill put in the White House, right, and replacing them after the departure of Joe Biden. This is the same Prime Minister who's had pictures of Churchill removed from Downing Street.
Because they kind of scare him. He doesn't want things like that looking over him while he's working.
I mean, somebody said it very well yesterday. They sent me a tweet that said, isn't it amazing that, you know, we've got a guy in the White House who shares our values
Britain
and respects
and
everything that we do, and we've got a guy going to see him who actually doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's a tragedy for all of us. Right?
I think actually Trump loves Britain more than Starmer does, because what Starmer is doing to our country at the moment is, you know, absolutely appalling.
He's absolutely tearing
He
it
wants
apart.
to be in Davos. He's, you know, he's a European. He's not really, or he's an internationalist. He's not not a proud Brit.
No, he's not. And all of the things he said to Trump about how great Britain is, he doesn't really believe it.
No, he doesn't believe it, and he doesn't believe in free speech and things like that.
Yeah. How about this? Warwick says this from Devon. Mike, as usual, you have one hell of a show. You're spot on with your comments about Starmer. Pass the bucket. What an absolute vomit fest. I mean, the one thing about what we do here at Talk is that we know what people think. We can see it. You know, you'll be hearing, as I said, all sorts of other commentators this morning, unlike you and I, going, oh, well, you know, Starmer went to America and he got a good deal from Trump and he's going to OK the Chagos deal, and isn't it great, and isn't it good to see that Britain's on the front line with, you know, world leaders? No, it isn't, because everybody is seeing what we saw and is saying it. And Michelle from Altrincham said again, well, yes, I was feeling cringeworthy and nauseous watching Starmer yesterday and today, being polite on your show, as they say in Only Fools and Horses. What a plonker. Of course, Rodney is his middle name, isn't it? Rodney! What a plonker! Can you imagine? You know, or, you know, Del boys that would turn up going, all right, listen, there's some good stuff around this White House, around the back, right, we'll roll the van up and start unloading some of it right in there, we'll take it home with us, all right?
David Lammy would be good at that.
Yeah, Lammy, oh, God. I mean, thankfully he didn't say anything.
I know. Oh,
I mean,
God, if he'd opened his mouth.
Awful.
I think most people that saw it had the reaction that we had. I just think the papers have gone weird this morning.
They're trying to sort of make it like rah-rah, let's fly the flag for Britain, and I get that. But I'm not going to do that.
Look,
because
Britain is always going to get...
I work for the people that listen and watch this show. I don't work for the establishment. I don't work for anyone. I work for them.
Britain is always going to get a gracious response from the White House. Of course they are.
Yeah.
It would have been rude, and Trump doesn't do that.
Right.
It would have been rude, whatever leader, whatever Prime Minister we ended up with, to have rebuffed him, to have been rude to him. But I think, you know,
No, I mean, Trump plays the role well.
Of course he does.
You know, you go to his house, he's gracious because you're in his house, and that's what he does. But, you know, it means nothing.
The devil is in the detail,
nothing.
and let's see what actually comes out of this.
Exactly.
Let's see what happens on Chagos, and let's see what happens on the trade deals, and let's see what happens on Ukraine.
Yeah.
Because Trump didn't commit to anything.
No, of course he didn't.
He didn't fold on anything. He didn't kowtow to us on anything.
Right.
And it was clear who was in charge. Yeah. Absolutely in charge.
And getting patted by the Keir Starmer, I mean, just embarrassing. Poured, let's get a voice note about Mike Amesbury. This is from Andy.
Morning, Mike. Andy in Portsmouth. This Amesbury character, what a gall this man's got. He was guilty, he got sentenced, and now he appeals. So he obviously has zero remorse for what he did. Yeah, I just think it's an absolute disgrace. I really do, that he's been able to appeal and get away with going to prison. And Starmer, all about free speech. Is he having a laugh or something? Great show, Mike.
Yeah, Andy, absolutely right. I mean, you know what's going on. Everybody watching this show knows what's going on. You know, the Starmer White House scenario, it was an absolute fake, hypocrisy, nonsense, cobblers. You know, anybody convinced by that should have their brain removed. You know, the likes of Robert Peston will be going on about all these 10-minute long questions. You know, these people don't get it. They don't get it. The people of this country can see what's going on. And it's all absolute and utter cobblers.
It's really embarrassing. And I'm embarrassed that Starmer, you know, is our man.
Yeah,
it is embarrassing. As for Amesbury, can you just explain that? Would normally an appeal would take much longer?
I don't
because he's got his appeal very quickly.
I have to say, and I said this yesterday, there must have been some kind of intervention.
People wait years,
from
don't
the
they?
Attorney General, who is of course Keir Starmer's mate, Lord Hermer, Lord Harmer as I like to call him. There would have been some kind of intervention where he would have spoken to whoever organises the appeals in this country to say, look, we don't want to have a recall, so let's get this guy off so he doesn't have to go to prison.
Because we don't have enough judges, we don't have enough courts, we don't have enough court time.
No.
Normally this stuff takes a long time.
2 years minimum.
It would be really interesting to know how that got through, and also why he's still drawing his salary.
Yeah,
91 grand.
My theory is this, right? They made him make the appeal because it puts everything on hold.
Yeah.
It meant that there won't be an immediate recall petition.
Yeah.
You don't actually automatically, I think, get a recall petition unless you're sentenced for a crime over a year in prison. So he was already under that because he was only sentenced to 10 weeks. But, you know, why shouldn't he go to prison? He beat the hell out of a constituent, unprovoked, it seems to me. A man on the ground, he could have killed him.
Punched him
we
five
have people on
times.
for the One Punch campaign who say that, you know, you can be killed by one punch. This guy was punching a defenceless guy sitting on the floor very late at night, drunk and disorderly. What on earth is going on? He's a Labour MP. He should be fired by Labour right out the door.
The judge, without question. The judge, and why was the WhatsApp guy fired if this guy was not fired? The judge said he drunk umpteen pints and punched the guy at least 5 times.
Yeah.
I mean, how on earth
How is he still in a job?
Sitting?
And also, the other thing they're terrified of is a by-election because they know Reform will win it.
Of course, and Reform are gearing up for this.
And Reform will be gearing up for it. It's 6:36, Emma Wolf is here. We've got lots more to go with. If you've got your sticker this morning, do let us know, because what we're going to do, we got the first one yesterday, Mal in Liverpool. He sent us a picture of a very nice sticker, the home of common sense, on the back of his car. If you've got one this morning, because they should be all arriving, if they haven't arrived yesterday, they should be arriving today. Send us the pictures in. We'll put them out on social media, and you can join the revolution of common sense. Coming up, we're going to talk about the BBC.
Across the UK, on on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:39. We are here, of course, for the duration, and we are here all the way through every single weekday morning from 6 until 10. We've got lots more to do. Let's talk a little bit about the BBC. Emma Wolf is here. We've got, of course, the BBC admitting this morning to serious flaws about their so-called Gaza documentary. I don't call it a documentary. I call it a piece of propaganda, because that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
They mixed the words up. They censored some of the things that people said and pretended they didn't say them. Like, for example, when they wanted jihad against the Jews, they changed that to "we want to fight the Israeli Defence Forces," which is not quite the same thing. You know, we know about the £400,000 that they've been paid to this Palestinian organisation, which might be affiliated with Hamas. We don't know. The boy who narrated it was from the son of a Hamas representative. Gary Lineker signed a piece of paper, a letter, along with 500 so-called industry figures. I don't know who they were, apart from the few names that we got. I keep meaning to go through the whole list, basically saying this is a marvellous piece of journalism. Well, it's not, and even the BBC have admitted that. So Lineker now looks like a complete chump again, having got it wrong.
Oh, and they just go quiet, don't they? And guess what? The BBC, as you say, they're now admitting, oh, they should have carried out checks.
Yeah.
Well, I think they would have done so if it had been the other way around.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, I don't think they would have made it if it had been the other way around.
You know,
of course they wouldn't.
Let's look forward to the documentary they do from the streets of Tel Aviv.
Well, exactly.
As the rockets come in every single bloody day from Gaza, or and the suicide bombers blow them up every time.
Or the special they do on October the 7th, for example. You know, we wait for that with bated breath.
Yes.
No, it's absolutely outrageous. And once again,
absolutely shocking.
From our national broadcaster.
Speaking of October the 7th, the Israeli security services have now admitted that they did make terrible failures around their security on October the 7th, because that was one of the things that people were quite surprised at, because they are, generally speaking, one of the most secure countries in the world. I mean, if you even fly El Al, I remember my parents used to fly El Al backwards and forwards to New York, because quite often it was, I used to buy their tickets, and quite often it was a cheap way to go. But you could not buy a bottle of vodka to take on El Al unless you bought it 2 hours before, so that they could screen it before it even went on the plane.
Yeah, I remember El Al.
You know, they were so careful. And, you know, going in and out of Israel, I've never been, but I'm told, you know, the security at the checkpoints and the security at the airports is immense.
Yeah.
And so people were quite puzzled that what happened on October 7th could have even happened.
Well, the IDF are now saying it turns out that Hamas had been planning this attack for at least 7 years.
Right.
That they had pretty much assumed that they just didn't have the kind of capacity or even the intent to carry this out. And that actually there were many opportunities that they could have thwarted the operation.
Yeah.
The entire terrorist attack. So, yeah, I mean, this is really quite serious.
Yeah, but this is why exactly they want to destroy Hamas, so that it can never, ever happen again. We've actually got a clip, believe it or not, on Hamas and BBC problems from Keir Starmer. Check this out.
Prime Minister, the BBC has today admitted serious flaws over the recent Gaza coverage, suggestions of payments made to people linked to Hamas. Does the BBC still have your trust? Thank you.
On the BBC, look, I've been concerned about the programme in question. The Secretary of State had a meeting with the BBC. I think it was yesterday, it could have been the day before. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's not an answer.
I don't know what that means.
That's not an answer. He has no opinion, he has no view.
I've been concerned about the BBC. What does that even mean? He won't, because of course he won't say what we all think he would say. Because why? Because he doesn't want to upset the Ramadan scenario, does he? He doesn't want to upset the Muslim vote.
That's just not an answer.
Which is so ludicrous and ridiculous, because there are plenty of Muslims who despise Hamas, plenty of Muslims who will decry what they've done, but there are also plenty who won't. And many of them are in the Labour Party, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, what is his problem with just not answering questions?
It's the same problem that means that all sorts of things don't happen in this country, both legally and in terms of policy about migrants and all the rest of it. They're terrified of upsetting the Muslim vote. It's really shocking.
It really is shocking. And guess what's happening with migrants, Mike?
There's a lot more of them.
There's a lot more of them. And guess what?
Daily Mail today.
Guess what? A lot more in the second half of last year than there were in the first half of last year.
Massive increase in the number of asylum seekers.
Massive increase since Labour came in, basically, of asylum applications. Yeah, 108,000 asylum claims.
Yeah.
Plus, there's stuff in the papers, really, I won't say anything, I don't want to be put in prison, about some of the immigration judges, the way they make their decisions.
Nobody's going to put you in prison, don't worry. And if they do, I'll make sure that you get out the next day.
I'm not risking it anymore, not in this country. That is really sad, but I just don't want to say anything. I mean, people being banged up for weeks and months in prison for just saying things, for just posting things.
All you've got to do is go outside, punch a few people who are sitting down on the ground.
Get blind drunk and smash people up. But you've got to be an MP to do that. You've got to be a Labour MP to do that.
Just wear a Labour badge and you'll be fine.
No, but I'm far right because I'm not a Labour MP.
You won't even have to go to prison. This from Gary in East Riding. Great show, Mike. I thought Starmer was going to pull out his last Rolo and offer it to Trump. Starmer lied his way to power to fill his own agenda. And Sue from Essex says, great show as always. I'm up at 6 o'clock every day to watch your show. I don't know how you do it without swearing all the way through it, especially after the Trump-Starmer meet. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Susan, thank you very much indeed. I have to say, today, very difficult for me not to swear. I mean, there have been a lot of B words.
I was going to say, haven't you, presumably sometimes you are caught saying the F-bomb on air.
You know, I did it once. I did it once, and, you know, nobody complained. They actually said, I think we got one note from somebody who said, I'm surprised you don't do it more, given, you know, the absolute crap we have to put up with every single day. Absolutely. And Brittany in the USA says, Mike, what's the email I can send my information to? I'd like a sticker here in the US. I'll put it on my wheelchair. Brittany from the US, absolutely amazing. We will give it out. What I've been saying is that we had such a demand for them. Thousands and thousands of you want these stickers, and so we've run out for the moment. So we're printing more. I was speaking to the powers that be yesterday because I'm trying to, you know, speed them up on it all. But I've managed to convince them to print some more. They were at one point saying, "Oh, I don't know if we can print anymore." I'm like, "No, you're going to print more. People want them. People want them all over the world. So we are going to get them all to you. If I have to pay for it myself to send them to you, I will do it because I know that the revolutionary common sense is worldwide.
If you can make these stickers for wheelchairs, I want one for a bike.
Yeah, okay.
And a toddler bike
John
as
Rental, John Rental wants one for his bike.
Well, there you go. Yeah,
so
indeed.
We can certainly, I'm sure we can sort you out with that. Coming up, we're going to do some more stories, including a bit more on what I was saying, what we were just saying there about migrants and the number of asylum claims that have absolutely rocketed since July. Also, we're going to talk about only 3% of people that come here on the dinghies being deported. They're all staying here. And Katy Perry has decided to blast herself off into space. No bad thing, in my view. But who would you nominate to be blasted off into space? That's a good one for you. You can text us, of course, on 87222. Send us a voice note to 03444991000. And let's get a voice note right now from Jacqueline.
I think what this judge has done and what Labour have done, because there's obviously been an interference here so he can keep his seat, this Mike Ainsbury, that they've set as precedents now that it'd be OK then for someone to go and punch an MP and get away with it. That would be fair, wouldn't it?
Well, that's the trouble. I mean, the trouble is, of course, they make an awful lot of noise about the danger that MPs face because, you know, the hate squad, people like me, get accused of drumming up hate. It's actually people like Keir Starmer that drum up hate. But, I mean, she makes a good point. Of course, we'll have to say, because you have to say it, you know, nobody wants to see MPs getting punched or harmed in any way. Nobody does. But if you're an MP and you can, with alacrity, go around punching your constituents and not have to go to prison, what message does it send?
Just about justice.
How can you be tough on law and order?
Exactly.
Right? When you go, well, so the next time you arrest some yob for getting into a punch-up outside a pub one night in the middle of, I don't know, Brighton or Portsmouth or Manchester, why should they be sent to prison?
If the roles were reversed and someone had been laying in, literally punching a Labour MP, can you imagine? They would still be in prison right now.
I know. Unbelievable stuff. Absolutely incredible. Emma Wolf is here. We're here, of course, all the way through until 10 o'clock. It's coming up to very nearly 6:48 in the morning. The sun is up. It's looking a bit hazy, but we're getting into March. You know, spring is coming. There was a bit of a spring in the air yesterday. There was a lot of sunshine when I was out in the afternoon, so it was very cool. We'll do more on the news stories, and also Meghan Markle might get a mention as well. This is Talk.
Hamas has won the propaganda war with useful idiots like yourself. And I use the term useful idiot advisedly, not as an insult to you, but people who just take what they say. People who just suck out the teat of the mad propaganda from our enemies, which is what you, Gary Lineker and others have done.
No, not our enemy. I don't see Hamas as our enemies. I don't see the establishment as our enemies. I see them as involved in a conflict in a country that is far away from Britain, and we should allow both sides to be heard.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:51. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, when Alex Phillips will be here on Friday, of course, for that show from 10 till 1. Emma Wolf is here as well. Let's get a voice note from Dave on free speech.
Mike, you've got this free speech thing all wrong. What that basically means is Starmer's front bench can say whatever they want. They're free to say anything they want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even have to be true. That's free speech, Mike. Say whatever you want. Nobody cares.
Yep, unless, of course, you say it and you're putting it on Facebook or you're putting it online somewhere and then the police come around and ask you whether you know that you've been accused of harassment for some reason or other. Got this from Anne in Bournemouth. Morning, Mike, thanks for the common sense every day, which seems to be impossible to find these days. Where can I get your bumper stickers from? Anne, listen, you've got to be patient. We're going to give you out an address where you can send an email, but we're going to wait until we get another batch of stickers in because we're literally out of them and we haven't got any. Roger says this, Mike, I've got a handful of people I like to blast off into space. Sadiq Khan, Ed Miliband, David Lammy and Angela Rayner are first in line.
All of them are on my... All of them.
Katy Perry's going into space,
Dawn
apparently.
Butler. Katy Perry can stay there.
Dawn Butler,
she
absolutely right.
can
Sadiq
go.
Khan.
Sadiq Khan.
Can we blast Starmer into space, please? He's even got his own personalised countdown, says Simon.
Is there room
for... 5, 4, 3,
yes.
2, 1. Yeah.
Free the bananas.
Yeah. And then one from...
Is there room for Macron? Is there room for Justin Trudeau?
Yes,
could we pop
absolutely.
a few more of them?
Yeah,
Biden could shuffle on the back.
How about Meghan Markle and Harry?
She could go on
and
there.
Harry.
Absolutely.
Tim, nice but dim.
Can you imagine them all on it together?
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
What a great...
fantastic. You know, go and start a new colony on Mars or something, or on the moon.
I put Ed Balls and Yvette Cooper on there as well. I've got a special hatred for them.
Absolutely right. Let's talk about Meghan, because she's in the papers again today, Daily Mail. She apparently put an Instagram post up yesterday of her dancing in her kitchen.
Really casual, with her film crew.
Literally nothing to do.
Literally nothing.
They've got so much money and nothing really to occupy them. So she just...
It's this created lifestyle, which I really object to.
Yeah.
She's rented a house, you know,
Yeah.
she's rented a location house. She's pretending that she's in there cooking every day, sprinkling flowers
it's like she's
on
living
her
in an advert,
guests' pillows.
Yeah.
Love Meghan. What's it called now? Always yours, or
No,
love
as ever.
always. As ever.
Yeah.
What? As ever what? Get out of my
Yeah,
face.
except they can't call it that because it turns out there's a Chinese clothing company that's got that name already, and there's
that one as well.
and there's an American company that also uses it as a trademark, so she can't use that. I mean, I
spent months learning American Riviera Orchard or Orchard Riviera Montecito, whatever it
which
was,
they
and
also
now
can't use.
which she also can't use.
Do you think that at some point or other, if she goes and sits down with her sort of business team, she goes, "Can you please pick a name that somebody else isn't using?"
No.
Would you
know
not
what?
do
I've
that?
got an idea, Mike. You could just Google it and check if it's already a company.
You could do that.
I mean, is that
so
really...
she posts this footage of her dancing, wearing a sort of, what can only be described as a kind of beige trouser suit of some description, and then she takes it off, takes it down, takes the post down, then puts it back up again. There's obviously something weird going on.
There's obviously something weird going on, and... Yeah, a lot of thought goes into this.
And then she goes, and
stuff.
this is great news for all Meghan fans. 6 more days until our show launches on Netflix, celebrating the crew and everyone who helped make this happen.
You see, it's all about the little people.
Deary
what I think is so cool is that Catherine, the Princess of Wales, was on a trip the other day to Wales. Someone asked her about her plum jam recipe, and she said, "Oh, I must share the recipe of my plum jam." That's it. She doesn't set up a company and start sending out jars of jam all around the world.
No.
Or start sending people...
That would have sent Meghan mad, wouldn't it? Because she made
Of course,
the front pages
exactly.
again.
It totally undermines her. That's what you do with a recipe like that. You go, oh, yeah, here. This is how I make my favourite jam. You don't make a whole lifestyle brand about it.
Exactly.
It's going to be a complete joke. I can't wait. Yeah.
Final story of the morning. Almost 1 million young people not working, studying or job hunting. This is official figures from the Employment Department. 987,000 people aged 16 to 24 not in education, employment or training. The highest figure since the end of 2013, up 42% in just 3 years.
Well, Mike, why do we think the benefits bill is spiralling out of control and the country's bust?
Right.
Why do we think that anxiety and depression and ADHD and all of these young people's issues and mental health is off the charts? Because that's how you get your benefits. Why do we keep hearing from Liz Kendall, the Work and Pension Secretary, and now the Employment Minister, Alison McGovern, saying, oh, young people must earn or learn. They're going to lose their benefits. This is all we keep hearing. It's the same thing from Labour. We've heard this now for months. We're going to sanction people. We're going to get them back to work. Do something. Look at the numbers. Right. It's not good for young people.
Also,
I'm not being nasty. It's not good for them.
But also,
it's not nice to start your life unemployed.
But don't think also that the government can create jobs for them, because that's what the government unfortunately seems to believe. Well, what you do is you make sure that the companies of this country, who are currently hiring nobody, because they keep taxing them, and the more people you hire, the more national insurance goes up. What they need to do is put the money back into the hands of the private companies, the commercial operations, who will then give people jobs. That's how the economy grows. You complete idiots.
Yes, when you make employment so expensive for employers, they will lay people off. They will not employ people. It's too expensive. So there are all these vacancies which we have. How can people employ people?
I know, it's absolutely shocking. Unbelievable stuff.
They don't understand growth. They don't understand the economy. Rachel from Accounts doesn't understand any of it.
Oh, unbelievable. In Herne Bay, Mike says this: I was desperately hoping to see a bumper sticker drop out of His Majesty's letter to Trump. Maybe you can arrange it when he comes over for the state visit. Yeah, very possibly.
For the Beast, what's his presidential car called?
The Beast.
Yeah, the Beast.
We'll try and get one on the back of that.
He needs a bumper sticker on that.
He does, absolutely. Home with common sense. Finally, let's talk about the weird story of Gene Hackman and his wife, because, I mean, it's very strange.
Very
now,
sad.
Some of the details that are coming out. Terribly sad.
Yeah.
He was a very old man. He was 93, but many people at the age of 90, my mother at 93 was actually quite fit and full of life.
Yeah.
But the pictures of him looked like he was very, very, old and felt very old. His wife and he were found mummified as if they'd been dead for a couple of weeks, apparently. And nobody really knows what happened.
No, there's talk that one of the dogs who did survive may sort of hold the clue, may have some kind of... They may be able to work out what happened. There is talk in some of the papers about possible gas leak, possible kind of carbon monoxide poisoning, something like that. We have to say his wife was, like your mum. My dad was 92 and very hale and hearty. So, it's not just that, but he did look very frail in pictures. His wife was a lot younger, though. She was in her...
Like 63 or something,
the fact that they were both found dead and that no one had called them or checked in or anything or raised the alarm for weeks seems really, really concerning, although the police are saying no suspicious circumstances. Really sad way.
Initially, they were saying they thought it was a double suicide of some kind, but it's beginning to look less like that now. But, of course, it's made many of the front pages this morning, so we'll keep you updated on that story as time goes through the course of the day. We've got lots more to do. Emma, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Have a good weekend. The weekend is upon us. It is the 28th of February, so tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, is the 1st of March. And I'm asking you for an awful lot of help this morning, not just to show us the bumper stickers that you're getting in the post this morning, but also to nominate a few people to be sent off up into space, with Katy Perry, Sadiq Khan, Keir Starmer, Angela Rayner, and all manner of other people, possibly Meghan and Harry, usual suspects. Sean says this: so Keith Stalin has embarrassed us on the world stage again. He screws things up in this country. Is there anything that he does right? The only thing he's good at is lying and not answering questions. He's a disgusting individual surrounded by more of the same in his cabinet. I dread to think what state this country will be in when they've finished with their insanity. Well, quite. Coming up, we'll bring you more after the news.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened.
I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. Shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in on the far ball, slides it in. An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspect in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public has not been told the truth.
No. There's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Bloomberg UK reporting Ukraine has made the first long-range missile strike inside of Russia.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to very nearly 3 minutes past 7. I'm Mike Graham. It is, of course, Gaffer Friday, and we're going to make it a bit of a special Gaff Friday, I think. We're going to just play you all the gaffes that Keir Starmer's made over the course of the first 6 months or 7 months or so of his prime ministerial reign. He was over in Washington yesterday. Many of you will have seen it on Talk last night as he went and sat down next to the President Donald Trump and behaved, as I say, for all purposes, for all intents and purposes, like a sort of a rather embarrassed, very, very first time initiated person that goes to sit with the headmaster. He looked, for all intents and purposes, like the boy who'd been to his first proper football match and sat in a proper adult stadium and actually sat with somebody who was quite important. But he felt, for all the world, like he was definitely the beta male in the room. Donald Trump was very nice to him, as I said he would be. Donald Trump didn't humiliate him, as I said he wouldn't do. But Keir Starmer pretty much humiliated himself, it has to be said. 0344 499 1000. Coming up, James Heal's going to join us from The Spectator. We'll get his view on it. The papers have been pretty kind to Starmer this morning, saying, you know, mission accomplished. He went there. He looks like he got an agreement on the Chagos deal, which I'm not sure he did. It looks like he got what he wanted on Ukraine, which I'm not sure he did. Looks like he got what he wanted on trade tariffs, which I'm not sure he did. But what we did see was a craven, really hypocritical Prime Minister pretending that he liked Donald Trump and that he was his best friend. I mean, it really was quite cringe-making. We're going to be talking about that. Plus, the same problems erupt around the BBC over that Hamas documentary. We've got more problems with the migrant situation, asylum seekers rate coming into this country at a record rate now since Labour have been in charge. And also, we're asking for your nominations for people to be sent into space. Here's Neil.
Morning, Mike. Neil from Essex here. There's only one candidate for blasting off into space. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah.
Yeah, let's hope he gets sent up there and never comes back. It would be the only answer for the success and the future of this country, which he seems to be dismantling with every single thing that he does. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Andy says this. Morning, Mike. Andy from Notts. Yesterday was a massive letdown for anyone with common sense. Trump was a bit of a hero of mine, but after yesterday, he slipped down the league table into the relegation zone. How did Starmer manage to con Trump into accepting the Chagos deal as a good one? I'm still scratching my head. Well, I'm not sure he has actually accepted it. He's basically said it looks like a good deal, but we need to look at the details. Now, that seems to me to mean that, yeah, it might be all right on the face of it, but let's look into it and see whether or not, actually, there's any substance to it. Alan in Middlesbrough says this. It's a sad indictment of UK politics and explains the dire state of the country when the President of the United States is prouder of British history and its former political legends than our own Prime Minister. I wonder if Starmer will return Churchill's portrait to where it belongs in number 10. Well, this is one of the things that happened in the White House yesterday, where Starmer started congratulating Donald Trump for having pictures of Winston Churchill knocking around. This is the same Prime Minister who removed portraits of Winston Churchill from his office. So what does that tell you? You know, he's pretending to be somebody he's not. I don't think that's a good thing for this country. I don't think it's a good thing for our image. I don't think it's a good thing for the Prime Minister to be a duplicitous, completely and utterly hypocritical liar. How is that good in any way, shape or form? And coming out with that letter going to Donald Trump, oh, and I've got this letter here from the King. Would you like to come and sleep at Balmoral? Because that'll be really great, and that'll mean that we're really good friends and we can all have a sleepover together. I mean, do me a small favour. James Heal is here, political correspondent of The Spectator. I'm hoping, James, that you saw through this ghastly, complete and utter vomit fest with Keir Starmer and Donald Trump. Papers have been quite nice to both of them this morning, but I think they're getting it wrong. The people of this country saw through all of it.
Well, I mean, I think it was a good day for Keir Starmer, actually. I think, it was, in some ways, as you say, Mike, we who know about his actions at home can contrast that with how he was presented abroad. It was politics 101. It was, masterfully done. When, for instance, when he was talking about, it's great to see the bust of Winston Churchill back. Like you say, I mean, this, of course, is the man who removed the portrait from Margaret Thatcher from his own office.
Well, he removed the one of Churchill as well. I mean, he said he didn't like looking at portraits because he didn't like the way their eyes followed him around the room. I mean, the bloke is a compulsive liar.
I think that he will be, he and his team will be happy today that he seems to have, what's that line about patriotism is lying for your country, or diplomacy? I think, they will be happy to have got away with the visit going off quite smoothly. Donald Trump didn't sort of embarrass them by giving them a small chair or something like that, as there's some talk about Macron earlier this week. And I think that, it does show that despite everything I said about Donald Trump, he does tend to like people. It was a much warmer encounter than
again, I've been saying this for weeks. I know what Donald Trump is like. But a lot of people are going, Starmer's going to be humiliated. They're sort of talking it down as if, now Starmer's had some great, a great day out because he wasn't humiliated. I mean, is that really the level of our Prime Minister now, that he's had a good day because he wasn't made fun of?
Well, maybe that is the level with Keir Starmer. Look, I think that these encounters are fraught with difficulty, and all I'd say is that, a cautious thumbs up to the Chagos deal, the fact that Trump didn't criticise them over the EU, the fact that, yes, there was that encounter as you're showing on the screen there with J.D. Vance, but all in all, this was a pretty good day at the office for Keir Starmer. And look, he may change his mind by tomorrow, Donald Trump. There may be other future encounters, but overall, I think that they will be happy with how this visit went, given how important the meeting was and all the high stakes.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that Labour will be happy with it, but unfortunately, they also represent the nation, they represent the people, and I think this is what's wrong with politics in this country, is that politicians think that once they get in and once they get the power, it's all about whether they can stay there and whether they can impress each other and get patted on the back. I mean, the touching that was going on, the sort of the fawning, it was just, incredibly cringeworthy, it seems to me. And also, I mean, we've got plenty of evidence, and we'll play the clips possibly later, of him saying he hates Donald Trump. He thinks Donald Trump's dangerous. He thinks Donald Trump should not be welcome into Britain. He actually said yesterday, the last time you came, it was a great success. People on his front bench were campaigning against him even coming to Britain, and David Lammy was sitting there in the same bloody room.
Well, he was the one who said he'd chained himself to Downing Street and came to Britain, and he was the one who sat there on the sofa with him.
Yeah.
But, it was a masterfully cynical performance, and we've seen this time and again with Keir Starmer. This is the man who appealed to the Corbynites to get in 2020, who then completely sold them out and threw them under a bus the next 2-3 years. He will do what it takes for power, and clearly he is a ruthless and effective operator, and that is what he's done.
Well, he's not an effective operator. He might be ruthless. I mean, I don't think there's anything effective about anything that Keir Starmer does. I mean, he's effectively ruined the economy. He's effectively screwed up business in this country. He's effectively not stopped the boats. He's effectively completely disowned the Labour Party, and he's effectively proved himself to be a hypocritical liar. He's very effective in all those areas.
Well, he was effective today in appealing to Trump. He played him very well. He was sort of presenting the letter from the King there. That's something the King, Donald Trump does like, the connection with the royals.
He does, but it was a bit embarrassing, wasn't it?
I mean, I think that you have to do that with Donald Trump, unfortunately, and I don't think there's any difference between Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson going up there and slapping on the back and saying how wonderful he is. So I'm going to try and be a bit consistent on that and just say, look, he had to do it. Obviously, I would love the fact if he'd gone out there and done a more staunch defence of Canada, because obviously Donald Trump's been threatening Canada. We share a shared king. But that's politics, unfortunately, and I just hope that he is able to extract something, and that all that sort of effort that went into it will lead to some sort of leverage or deal or something.
Yeah. Listen, James, I know that you're a very fair-minded man, and you're far more fair-minded than I am, so I'm not going to criticise you at all, but I'm going to show you Starmer presenting the letter to you, and I'm going to challenge you to tell me that you think this was a good moment. Go on.
It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. That is really nice. I must make sure his signature's on that. Otherwise, it's not quite as meaningful. It is, and that's quite a signature, isn't it? Beautiful. He's a beautiful man, a wonderful man, and we appreciate it. I've known him, gotten to know him very well, actually. Yeah. First term and now second term. Perhaps you'd like to say what that very important paragraph...
Yes, so this is a letter from His Majesty the King. It's an invitation for a second state visit. This is really special. This has never happened before. This is unprecedented. And I think that just symbolises the strength of the relationship between us. So this is a very special letter. I think the last state visit was a tremendous success.
It was.
His Majesty the King wants to make this even better than that. So this is truly historic, an unprecedented second state visit. And he wants to talk that through with you.
And that says at Windsor. That's really something.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the touching that does it for me, I'm afraid. Yeah. It's because he's obviously been told, look, Macron did it, so you can do it. But Macron did it with a bit of panache because he's French, you know. And Starmer kind of reaching out and touching you with the dead hand of, you know, the Labour Party and socialism and kind of, you know, and knowing that he said many, many times, I'm anti-Trump, you know, I don't want to have Trump in the White House, he's a dangerous man, blah, blah, blah. I can't, I find it really hard to watch and without, you know, wanting to heave. Sorry.
No, still no. I do think also that Keir Starmer, just what we know of him, Mike, is just, you know, an English man in his early 60s, clearly very awkward, and we see him sort of tight and wound up and clearly having to reach out and touch Donald Trump. It's just, the body language, I agree about that. But look, you have to play the man. You play the cards you dealt, and he played them well. You know, obviously talking about Donald Trump. The Donald loves the royal family, and as he says that, you know, second state visit. So all I'd be interested in seeing is how many of those Labour MPs, Sadiq Khan, etc., flying that ridiculous barrage balloon, how many of them are going to be protesting this one? Now it's going to be Keir Starmer.
I mean, even Sadiq Khan has been pulled into line, hasn't he? He actually issued a statement, I think, a week before last, saying he's looking forward to Donald Trump coming to London because it's the greatest city in the world, and, you know, he's looking forward to welcoming him in. You know, I don't, maybe I'm just too old for this game, you know. I can't watch hypocrisy like that without calling it out. I can't accept it. I think it's embarrassing, and I think to use the King as some kind of pawn in a game of popularity is kind of demeaning, isn't it?
I think that, you know, it depends on if you're taking it from a political point of view or an HM government point of view. It's obviously in the UK
government. I'm taking it from a British point of view. I just think it looks cheap and it looks awful.
Well, I think that overall it was you know, sometimes you have to do these things for politics and diplomacy. And, you know, frankly, Donald Trump is an elected president. It's better that Keir Starmer's fawning over him than, shall we say, some of the people who Jeremy Corbyn was perhaps fawning over.
Yeah, maybe. But you might as well turn up with a sort of suitcase full of cash and go, yeah, when it comes to Britain, mate, we'll put you up in Windsor, you know, be all right. You know, Rodney's there.
Mike, that's what the Chagos deal's for, don't worry.
Yeah, and also I'm not convinced about the Chagos deal getting the nod because I'm not sure that once they look at the detail of it that they will think that that is a good thing, because I'm under the impression as well that in the White House they were not happy about the idea that the Chagos deal might be paid for by the new defence budget, because that's not what the money's meant to be spent on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, everyone sees on the quote saying, you know, he said there doesn't seem to be a problem with it. But of course, he did also say in the comments, which were that he wants to look at the detail of this. And I think in the circumstances, Number 10 will be happy that he just didn't go out there and completely kibosh the deal, etc. But let's see a few weeks and months, etc. And, you know, Ross Kempsell, who is Boris Johnson's spokesman, has been out there saying, you know, look, let's point out and note the fact that actually they haven't fully signed off on the detail yet. So a cautious thumbs up, but definitely not a full resounding yes.
Yes, let's have a look at what he actually said. Here's Trump on the Chagos Islands.
Keir Starmer has signed the deal to give away the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. Will you approve that deal?
Well, we're going to have some discussions about that very soon, and I have a feeling it's going to work out very well. They're talking about a very long-term, powerful lease, a very strong lease, about 140 years, actually. That's a long time. And I think we'll be inclined to go along with your country. Yeah, I think it sounded... It's a little bit early. We have to be given the details, but it doesn't sound bad. Yeah, please.
Yeah, somebody just sent me a tweet from previous times when Keir Starmer was the leader of the opposition. An endorsement from Donald Trump tells you everything you need to know about what is wrong with Boris Johnson's politics and why he isn't fit to be Prime Minister.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I rest my case.
I know. I think, you know, clearly he's had to just do a complete 180 in his politics, and I think that he will say it's for the good of the country, etc. And hopefully from a kind of, you know, he will be making the case for Ukraine in these kind of meetings. But that's the key thing, I think, Mike. We've had a good first meeting from his perspective. The key thing is what's going to come as a result of that. Does it have any influence? In Number 10, they want to have the kind of relationship that Shinzo Abe had in the first term, the Japanese Prime Minister. We'll find out over the next 4 or 5 years. And it might have been a good day today, but of course, you know, that's just one day over a long 4 years, so they're going to be working together. And of course, as J.D. Vance made a big point about free speech, it's not all going to be plain sailing, and the Americans will certainly have views on British domestic policy as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. James, good to talk to you. Have a great weekend. James Heal, political correspondent at The Spectator, who's playing a straight bat there. I mean, he thinks it's a good day for Britain. He thinks that Starmer's done well by getting that audience with Donald Trump and getting some answers from him over trade, over the Chagos Islands, over Ukraine. I'm not so sure. And I do have to say, and I'm sorry if I'm the only person saying it, I know that you all agree with me, I just found it terribly cringeworthy, terribly hypocritical and just embarrassing for my country, quite frankly. Roy says that Starmer meeting Trump was an absolute cringe fest. Could Starmer be any more two-faced? Roy from Gloucester. Mick in Wallington. Starmer's sick hypocrisy was illuminated by his comment on Churchill's bust being returned to the Oval Office. And Ginny says Two-Tier was so cringy yesterday, waving his little special letter around like he clinched the deal of the century. What's Trump playing, though? Yeah, that's a good question. Let's talk to Danny, who's in London, wants to talk about Starmer. Danny, very good morning to you.
Good morning, sir. I look, Starmer said he's going to send our troops to the borders of Ukraine to look after it. Well, why doesn't he keep the borders open here? Look at all the people that are coming in.
Exactly.
The troops should be here. Why should they be over there? And say, God forbid, a million times Russia did strike. I wonder if Trump really would help.
Yeah, well, I think he probably would, because I think at the end of the day, you know, the Western Alliance is the Western Alliance. But you're quite right. I wrote a piece for the Telegraph this week saying it's all very well talking about, you know, security at home begins with strength abroad. Well, actually, security at home begins with security at home, in my view. You know, protect our own bleeding borders and stop these people coming in 10 to the dozen every single week that we have a life.
I mean, Farage, I know he's friends with Trump. He must tell him what Starmer is. Starmer really knows, doesn't he? Trump really knows.
Of course he does. I mean, again, I said before this all happened, of course Trump is going to be nice to him. He won't humiliate him. It's not his game. It's not his play. But he doesn't think Starmer is in any way an estimable individual. He wants to go and see the King, so he'd be flattered by that. But he doesn't give a stuff about Keir Starmer because he knows that Keir Starmer is a man who previously has trashed him and said, I'm anti-Trump. I think Trump's dangerous. He's not his friend.
And when he came over last time, didn't Sadiq Khan have a big blow-up
he did.
picture of him?
It was a big balloon in the shape of a pig. You know, I mean, these people. David Lammy was sitting there saying nothing, right? He said he was going to chain himself to the railings in Downing Street if Trump came over for a state visit. I mean, these people are just hypocrites, ridiculously, ridiculously two-faced. I'm sick of them.
He was shaking in his... You could actually see Starmer shaking in his shoes. Yeah. You could see it.
I mean, you can tell. I mean, looking at him, he's a complete plonker. And his name's Rodney, so it fits, doesn't it? Rodney, you plonker. Let's get a voice note from Nigel.
Good morning, Mike. It's Nigel here in London. I would send Keir Starmer and a whole cabinet jettisoned into space. But you must be sure, of course, that the spaceship has at least 1 or 2 talk bumper stickers on it. I'm sure that it will be the send-off of a lifetime.
Absolutely. Morning glory on the back of a spaceship. It's got to be done. We have managed to get ourselves on the back of a canal boat, by the way, so we're taking the waterways next. Coming up, we will tell you all about what you could be getting in the post today. If one of those people who requested a bumper sticker, there is a golden ticket knocking around. And when you get the golden ticket, you get in touch with us and we will tell you what it is that you do next and what you've won, because I think you'll be rather flabbergasted by it. Morning, Mike, says Mike in Glasgow. Starmer's excuse for not having portraits is he doesn't like the eyes following him around the room. I think he's been watching too much Scooby-Doo. Apart from all the touching and the bit about free speech, Starmer did a great job, says Ralph in Liverpool. Are you serious, Ralph in Liverpool? Have you had some kind of aneurysm? Eh? He didn't do a great job at all. He's embarrassed the country. I think it's an awful day for Britain. You know, I know the newspapers are saying otherwise. They're saying that, it all looks great, it all looks rosy, everything's back on. You know, Peter Mandelson, Captain Slime, is there, the ambassador to the United States. I just think if this is where Britain is in the world, is that really what you think it should be? You know, Britain cravenly on its knees in front of Donald Trump, offering him a letter from the King to make him feel important. I mean, do me a small favour. This is Talk.
Donald Trump constantly saying, my friend Vladimir Putin, he's talking about Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, his good friend. Yesterday, he wouldn't even give a firm commitment to preventing Taiwan being taken by force. Not even like in any way, but by force by China. And he wouldn't comment on it. Now, I mean, this is getting really worrying. I can't imagine there are a lot of Republicans in the American Congress who and a lot of Trump's aides who aren't going, hold on a minute there.
He's playing a very dangerous geopolitical game here.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:25. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until, of course, 10 o'clock. Alex Phillips will be here sitting in on Friday, as she does every Friday. Plank of the Week, of course, coming up later on tonight. We'll have a clip from that for you. Morning, Mike, says Nick in Kent. Great show as usual. I made myself sit through that cringe fest yesterday evening. I managed without throwing up, but only just. You only have to see the mark of Starmer and Trump by comparing what they achieved in their first 4 weeks. No comparison. And Steve says Starmer handing over the personal invite from Charles was cringeworthy, and like his visit to Cornwall for a Labour photo op, shows he's getting dragged into politics and it won't end well. Good morning, Mike, says Andy. I nominate Greta Thunberg to be blasted off into space. She can keep the others company and entertained whilst giving us all a rest from the nonsense she whines about daily. Andy from Bridgend. Let's get a voice note from Sally on Keir Starmer.
Oh, how awful was that? I couldn't believe how cringe-making it was, how he fawned over the president, how he had to keep touching him. And then the pièce de résistance. Voila, a letter from His Majesty the King inviting him to a state visit. That was appalling. His Majesty has been made a pawn in politics.
I couldn't agree more with you, Sally, and I'm so glad that you agree with me. It is embarrassing. You know, we are a great nation. We were a once great nation, reduced to sort of effectively pawing at the President of the United States of America, hoping for some attention, hoping that we'll be able to, you know, convince him to come and visit us because the King wants to see him. Let's get a view from the US. Ryan Harris is here, a US political reporter. Ryan, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Now, there are plenty of people in the press here this morning saying this has been a great night for Keir Starmer. He's done terribly well. Donald Trump didn't humiliate him. He was nice to him. You know, the meeting went very well. It was all genial, and, you know, they were very much involved in a sort of bromance. But, I mean, for me, it was all a bit sort of embarrassing, really. But I mean, you may have a different view from your side of the pond. What did you make of it?
Well, no, I watched both the press gaggle in the Oval Office and the formal press conference, and especially in those Oval Office moments, it felt to me like such a love fest that my first thought was, has the Prime Minister switched sides and joined the Tories? I mean, it's, you know, it was just unbelievable the way he was fawning over Donald Trump.
I know.
But at the same time, one might even argue that was the wise move, because it seems to me that foreign leaders realize if you stoke Donald Trump's ego a little bit, you tend to get your way a little more. You know, you get a more genial Trump. And so, you know, it might have been a brilliant move if you want to look at it from that perspective.
Well, it might have been, and political writers in this country are kind of saying that, but my take is more from the popular view of the people on the streets of this country, the men and the women on the streets of this country. And like all things that Labour do, it wouldn't have been so bad if they'd always been quite sort of big fans of Trump. You know, if Nigel Farage had done it, you would have expected that, because he's always been a good friend of Trump's and he's always got on with him. But this is a guy who spent a great deal of time not only saying that Trump was dangerous and that he was anti-Trump, his words, not mine, and members of his cabinet have called Trump a misogynist and a Nazi and a white supremacist. I mean, it wouldn't matter if they hadn't said any of those things, but they have said all of those things, so it makes them look like massive hypocrites.
Yes, and I do agree with that perspective, absolutely. You know, the other thing that stood out to me was when Donald Trump said something to the effect of, well, you know, when we talked about tariffs, that Mr. Starmer was negotiating hard against them, and he said, and I didn't like that very much.
Right. Yeah.
So clearly, you know, behind closed doors, the Prime Minister was, you know, at least giving a little bit of pushback. Although I suspect that same sort of cringeworthy attitude translated to the lunch meeting and the other closed door meetings.
Right.
But, you know, when it comes to a trade agreement, the world seems to be, in a way, a little bit, with a few exceptions, running scared that Donald Trump will impose tariffs on other countries, including strong allies like the British. Now, Donald Trump has also in the recent past said, and I believe the phrase was, Europe really screwed us or is screwing us with the value-added tax. Well, the value-added tax has been something that's happened in Europe for decades now. It's not a new thing. It's just the way Europe does business.
It's a sales tax. I mean, it's the same as when you buy something in New York and you get a sales tax put on at the till when you pay for it. You know, it's not anti-American. It's everybody pays it.
Exactly. And, other countries impose tariffs for whatever reason. But, in the meantime, we're all bracing over here for not only higher prices on things as a result of these tariffs, especially things that come from China, because it seems like every time I order something online and I think it's coming, from somewhere domestically, it turns out it's being shipped from China, and I really don't want it to be 25% more. I also don't want Canadian oil, they're one of our biggest suppliers, to be 10% higher, because here in California, and I'm sorry I didn't do the math in advance, but we're paying about $4.50 a gallon for gas. Now, that's still considerably less than the British pay, but it's higher than most places in the country. And, we really don't want to see that go up, because we're also paying, $9 or $10 for a dozen eggs.
Yes, but of course the bottom line seems to be at the moment, having only been in for just over a month, Donald Trump is absolutely ripping up the rule book and getting his way on almost everything that he touches. He's doing incredibly well with Ukraine. There are some people in this country who think he's a dangerous man and he shouldn't be sucking up to Vladimir Putin. But the bottom line is that whatever he says he's going to do, he seems to be doing. And in the end, all of the I guess the criticism of it will dwindle away if people become better off, if people get more of a boost to their salaries, if they start living a better life and all the rest of it. So I mean, I guess he's got another 3.9 years to go. Let's see what happens.
Agreed. But to your point about him doing the things that he promised he would do. Yes, he's doing that. He's signing a lot of executive orders, and he's already getting a great deal of pushback. And there are lawsuits filed and court battles ahead. Those aren't going to be settled overnight. Those are going to take time. In terms of people's concerns, Donald Trump has indicated through statements and posts online that maybe the law doesn't necessarily apply to him as president, and that as long as he's saving the country, he's not violating the law. But we still have a constitution and rule of law in this country, and not everything Donald Trump is doing is going to be found to be up to constitutional or legal snuff.
Yeah. So you're supposed to be seeing Volodymyr Zelensky today, I believe, who presumably is either on his way to DC now as we speak, or is already there. I'm not sure. That'll be another kind of opportunity, I suppose, a picture opportunity, a press release opportunity, a press conference, more journalists in the Oval Office. What are you expecting to see there?
Well, I'm interested to see if he'll apologize to President Zelensky for referring to him as a dictator. But I have to say, in terms of, this setup leading up to a possible Ukrainian-Russian peace deal, Donald Trump was smart to try to secure this rare earth mineral deal first, because I get the sense that if they brokered the peace deal first and then Donald Trump tried to come in and secure this minerals deal with President Zelensky, that Zelensky would essentially give him the middle finger. But Zelensky is trying to broker or be part of a brokerage of a peace deal, and Donald Trump wants the rights to these minerals and the ability to mine them, and so we'll see what happens there. But I suspect it'll be publicly probably a cordial meeting behind closed doors. Volodymyr Zelensky does not mince words often. I suspect he might have a few choice words for Mr. Trump privately, and we'll have to see what happens. And of course, there's no security guarantees, and the mineral deal is not a done deal. There's no guarantee that Zelensky will sign it. It's Donald Trump saying it'll be signed while he's there, but it's even the details haven't even all been hammered hammered out, and it's not clear what process Zelensky has to go through to sign it, for his side and for his country. So we'll have to see how this all plays out.
Sure, we'll look forward to that. Ryan, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Ryan Harris, US political reporter there. Morning, Mike, says Brittany in the USA. Starmer looked so lost yesterday. I could tell he looked like a nervous ball of nerves when he and President Trump were doing that press conference. Did you hear him stumble on something yesterday when he was speaking? It was horrible bromance. My bottom, says Brittany in the US of A. Mike, when Donald Trump comes over, says Warwick in Devon, how will that buffoon Khan react, do you think? Mike, in addition, Nigel Farage would have done everything without any script with Donald Trump. Absolutely right. Well, Khan has already said, Sadiq Khan has come out and said that he's going to be very happy to welcome Donald Trump to the greatest city in the world. That is what he calls London, of course. Let's see if he can manage to make it through without him getting stabbed while he's here. Sharon says, Mike, you're cracking me up this morning with your imitation of Starmer. I love it. Fixing the foundations for working people. We have got a letter for you, Mr. President, from the King. This is an historic moment. You are going to be invited to stay with the King at Windsor. Yes, it's never happened before. I mean, do me a small favour. Coming up, we're going to speak to Elon Levy, former Israeli government spokesman, of course. We're going to talk to him about what the Israeli government have admitted, which was a massive security failure on October the 7th. But also, I think I might ask him about the BBC and what should happen to them now. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, 7:38. This from Don. Mike, regarding the Chagos deal with Mauritius and the money we paid to lease it back, there's no mention of what we will be charging the states for the use of Diego Garcia, or is this a freebie? Good question. All of that seems to be still up in the air, and I'm not entirely sure, as some of the newspapers are this morning, that the deal has been rubber-stamped by Donald Trump. I don't think it has been, and I think there will still be quite a lot of negotiations to go. He did say we need to see the details before we actually agree to anything. So I wouldn't be too hasty to assume that the deal has already been done and dusted. Let's speak to Elon Levy, though, former Israeli government spokesman, of course. Elon, very good morning to you. Welcome.
Hello, good morning.
Thanks very much for joining us. A couple of things to mention to you. We're going to get to the BBC in a minute because I'm sure you might have something to say about their rather ludicrous propaganda documentary on behalf of Hamas, which even they have now admitted was an absolute disaster. But let's talk a little bit about what the IDF have said. They've admitted, and many people had said this at the time, but obviously there were times and places to say it, that they completely failed with minimum border security on that terrible, awful day of October the 7th. Why have they decided to say that now, do you think?
The IDF has been investigating since the October 7th massacre how such a horrific catastrophe took place, how it's possible that the army allowed us to be invaded by thousands of Hamas terrorists who completely overran our border defenses and murdered 1,200 people, most of them civilians, taking 251 people hostage into the Gaza Strip. And they found that Israel dramatically underestimated the threat. We didn't take the enemy seriously. They told us that they hated Jews. They told us they wanted to destroy Israel. They told us they were going to attack, and we just didn't take them seriously. And the lesson that Israel is going to take from October 7th is that we can never afford to underestimate our enemies again. And when they say they're coming for us, we're going to believe them. Yeah. When the Iranian regime chants death to Israel, it means you definitely can't let it acquire nuclear weapons and get the weapons of mass destruction to bring death to Israel. When the Palestinians and their allies in London are chanting from the river to the sea, they really mean it, that they want to destroy the state of Israel and not live in peace next to us. Yes. And that's the lesson Israelis are going to be taking from the initial investigations from October 7th. Right. We let our guard down. We can never do that again.
Yeah. And as far as the security services are concerned, is there any blame laid at the door of the government or Benjamin Netanyahu? Because there were some accusations of that, you know, last year or the year before. But is there any kind of ramifications for them?
What we're talking about now specifically is an internal military investigation into the military's own failures. The investigation didn't look into the political leadership. For that to happen, we need a state commission of inquiry, and that is what many people within the Israeli public have been calling for, a full state commission of inquiry that will look at everyone involved and see the extent to which the political leadership, as well as the military, underestimated the threat of Hamas. We thought it could be contained. We thought it could be bought off. We thought that if we had a high-tech fence, we would be able to tell if there were advanced sign of an invasion, but only a full state commission of inquiry can look at the whole process of decision-making that led to the atrocious failures of October 7th.
And what is that security like now on that fence, on that border fence? Because obviously we could see footage of them as they filmed themselves cutting through the fence and driving through it with bulldozers and whatever. It didn't look that difficult to break through. Is there more security on that particular part of the fence now?
Well, since October 7th, Israel has been waging a campaign to destroy the Hamas military inside Gaza. That's how we have over 20,000 Hamas terrorists who have been killed since the invasion of October 7th. Right now, we are at the end of phase 1 of the ceasefire. Hamas has released 33 hostages, most of them alive, some of them were murdered in captivity. And the question now is what is going to happen with phase 2? In phase 2, Hamas is meant to release the rest of the living hostages in exchange for an Israeli withdrawal. But Israel is saying, we're not going to withdraw if it leaves Hamas in power, and Hamas says we're not going to relinquish power. So Israeli forces are now on high alert. Soldiers have been told to be on alert for a possible call-up of reserves again in case we go back to the fighting. And that is a very realistic scenario now. If Hamas refuses to release more hostages, refuses to lay down its arms, refuses to surrender, we could be going back to the war to finish the job of destroying the Hamas terror regime.
Yeah, well, we wish you an awful lot of luck with that. Let's talk about the BBC talking about the Hamas terror regime. How to Survive a War Zone. Gaza was the name of the documentary. Now been roundly disregarded, really, by anybody with half a brain, apart from Gary Lineker, of course, who thinks it's a wonderful piece of journalism. But even the BBC have now said serious and unacceptable flaws happened in the making of the so-called documentary. I'm not going to list them all, but I mean, it seems incredible to me, but perhaps not to you, that the BBC would think this was an appropriate way to go forward.
Yeah, the BBC actually gave license taxpayers money to Hamas to produce this documentary.
Right.
You really couldn't make it up, except it's not surprising.
Except they did make it up, right?
No, I mean, it's not surprising because anyone who's been paying attention knows that the Hamas terror regime controls all the information coming out of Gaza. The journalists inside Gaza are either paid by Hamas, they work for Hamas media, or they're Hamas content creators, or they're simply cowed and intimidated by Hamas, because Hamas Gaza is an authoritarian state, where even people who want to speak out against Hamas are not free to do it because they'll get a bullet in their head. So, you know, I've been warning since the beginning of the war that Hamas is controlling what you are seeing coming out of the Gaza Strip. You've never seen images that are inconvenient to Hamas. You've never seen the bodies of dead terrorists. You've never seen them shooting rockets from inside civilian areas. You've never seen them shooting from out of civilian buildings, because Hamas has been choosing what you, the British public, see from inside Gaza.
Or killing their own people, indeed. In fact, in addition to this boy Abdullah that we're looking at now, who turns out the son of a Hamas operative, who Gary Lineker thinks is not a
Hamas
terrorist.
Minister.
You know,
a Hamas minister, because Hamas is the government
of Gaza. A Hamas minister, yes, but of course, you know, Gary Lineker says, oh yeah, but he's not a terrorist because he's a minister in the government. And you go, how stupid are you? You know, I mean, how many people do you think work inside of Hamas who are not terrorists? I would say pretty much zero, right? But also, in addition to this boy Abdullah being the son of the Hamas government minister, they also used a guy who's frequently appearing in Hamas propaganda videos, who's apparently been killed 12 times, according to the appearances that he's made. He's appeared as a doctor, he's appeared as a journalist, he's appeared as an ambulance driver, he's appeared as a hostage. You know, this guy just keeps appearing in, you know, one movie after another made up by Hamas, and the BBC didn't even recognise him.
Of course. Everything you've seen coming out of Gaza in the last year and a half has been a carefully staged, managed production by Hamas, which controls what you see and what you don't see. And unfortunately here, you have people at the BBC who are so committed to this narrative that, you know, they fell into this confirmation bias. The documentary confirmed what they wanted to believe instead of doing their basic due diligence. You know, Hamas is the terrorist regime that governs Gaza. It's not just a terrorist group. It's the regime in Gaza. It's the regime that decided on October 7th to declare war on Israel, to invade Israel, to take Israeli civilians hostage, to burn people alive in their homes. And it's that regime that Israel is now working to remove from power. And I really think this should be a salutary lesson for everyone around the world. You know, some basic media literacy. Ask, where is your information coming from? And if your information is coming from an authoritarian state governed by a jihadi regime that is intimidating journalists and pays journalists and decides what information comes out, you need to be more skeptical, because Hamas is taking the world for a ride.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Elon Levy, former Israeli government spokesman. Thanks very much indeed. Have a great weekend. Let's get a voice note from Carl.
Hi, Mike. Carl in Bury. I watched Keir Starmer over in America yesterday, and it just made me feel physically sick seeing the man standing there, creeping. He just looked so weak. And then when he came out with, he was so happy to see the bust of Winston Churchill back in the Oval Office. I couldn't believe it. What was one of the first things he did as soon as he got in as Prime Minister? He took away the Winston Churchill portrait. The man will say anything to try and get on the side of somebody. I don't trust him. I've never trusted him, never will trust him.
Yeah, you're quite right. It's absolutely cringe-making and sick-making, actually. Pretty awful stuff. They'll be claiming it as some kind of victory. The papers are being very kind. Tom Tugendhat's coming up in the next hour. We'll find out what he makes of it. He might be one of those who says it was a good day for Britain. I can't agree. I just can't. Now, it is Gaff Friday, so before we go any further, let's have one. And we're going to do a special today because, quite frankly, it has to be done. It's Keir Starmer special. Here we go.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
I'm sorry, I mean, that has to be one of the greatest gaffes of all time. Rodney, you plonker! Return of the sausages, the hostages. Who says sausages instead of hostages? Nobody does. Rodney! 7:49.
Tories talk a good game. Labour even talking a good game, probably against the wishes of a lot of their MPs and their supporters, who apparently think we should have no borders whatsoever and everyone should come on in the water's lovely. But no one seems to ever get a grip on this.
No, so we have at least two bits of legislation that I think make life very, very difficult for the United Kingdom. The first is the Equalities Act, and the other is the Human Rights Act, which takes into our body of law the European Convention of Human Rights and makes the European Court the superior body for human rights.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:53, very, very nearly. We are here, of course, all the way through until 10 o'clock. When Alex Phillips will join us with her take on what happened last night and yesterday afternoon in the Trump White House. Keir Starmer went for what he was calling an historic visit to the Oval Office for the first time as Prime Minister. He sat there in what can only be described, by me anyway, as a bit of a cringe fest. We're going to talk to Tom Tugendhat coming up very shortly in the next part of the show. We'll find out from him what he thought of it. But we've got some gaffs to play you as well. Margaret in Birmingham says this morning, Mike, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the Oscar goes to two-tier, never hear, no idea, Keir. What a cringeworthy performance that was. He will dine out on this for years. Look at me. Don't think so. Put your own country first, but you never will. Absolutely right. And Zoe says, when Trump comes over, wouldn't it be great if we all came out to greet him, including the farmers? And that will make for a brilliant question. Why are the farmers lining the streets, Starmer? Zoe in Lancashire. Let's talk now, though, to Peter Kirkham, former Detective Chief Inspector in the Metropolitan Police, because, I mean, there's been a lot of police stories, actually, around this week, but because of Ukraine, because of Trump and Starmer meeting, they haven't really been talked about very much. So one of the things we wanted to do was just catch up on it. The Police and Crime Bill that's been going through Parliament as well has made a few changes, but basically the Metropolitan Police supposedly have been told to be less aggressive in the relaunch of Stop and Search. Lots of people think Stop and Search is a good idea. Lots of people don't. Let's find out what Peter thinks. Peter, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
One, do you think stop and search is a good idea? And if so, are they right to say they have to be less aggressive while they're doing it?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
Stop and search. Stop and search is an essential part of keeping control of public space on behalf of the majority of the public for whom the police service works. If you've got the public constantly tell us that they want more officers on patrol. If those officers on patrol are going to be of any effect, they've got to intervene in things. They've got to engage with people who are suspected of offences, and that involves making arrests. But short of that, stop and search. And so it's an essential part of the overall picture. They've known for years, and, you know, personally, I've been talking about this before I left the police service, and then subsequently constantly on the media. It's not so much the what is being done, it's the how it's being done. You need to end every interaction, if you can, with a handshake or touching fists or whatever, some sort of physical contact, and that tells you that there's no residual animosity. Yeah, they might not be that happy, but overall they've accepted what's gone on and your explanation for it, apologies if need be. Unfortunately, we don't see that enough. It's very difficult to change behaviour of police officers, and it's very difficult for police officers to actually learn this skill. It's something you don't learn in a classroom. It's something you learn by experience, and for that experience you need experienced mentors to show the right way. Unfortunately, the police service has learnt it 2 or 3 times in my experience, and then things change and it forgets it again. I'd point to a lot of it seems training in the late 90s.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it seems to me, Peter, to be just about communicating with people, doesn't it? I mean, if you say to people, look, we're doing a stop and search operation on the high street today because this is to safeguard people. We want to make sure that everybody can have a good time on a Saturday afternoon without worrying about people with weapons, blah, blah, blah. And if you sort of sell it to them that way almost, they might be more receptive to understanding what they're doing.
It's absolutely a question of communication. We need to remember that communication is more than the words that we say. It's the appearances, it's the non-verbal communication. You're looking at footage at the moment of police officers. One of them had his hands in his pockets, the others didn't. What's that telling you about that one? Well, the communication is, well, I'm not that interested in whatever's happening here. And so you've got to make sure that the entire picture is saying the same thing, and that's frequently not the case. Aggression right from the off, starting from the blocks themselves, is rarely justified. It is sometimes. If you're intervening where you're pretty sure the person you're intervening with and you're about to stop in a car or on foot has been involved in a serious stabbing or a serious shooting, the weapon's still at large somewhere, you're not going to wander up and go, oh, excuse me, sir, do you mind if I put my hands in your pockets? Because by the time you've done that, you're going to have the weapon pointed at you. And so, yes,
it's
there
kind
might
of common sense, isn't it, really?
Well, that's rare.
Yeah,
it is very much common sense. Very much common sense.
It's a word it's a phrase that we use a lot here at Talk. We like to call ourselves a home of common sense, and it seems as though in many police forces at the moment, or police services, whichever word you want to use, I prefer the former. They've sort of forgotten what common sense is.
Yes, to a certain extent, and to be fair, it's a difficult interaction to do. It's not something we do in life generally. Walk up to somebody and try and start a conversation without coming across all accusatory. Almost by definition, if a police officer comes and speaks to you in the street, you start thinking, what have I done wrong? Well, they need to recognise that, and they need to try and do everything they can to overcome that, maybe even by acknowledging it. You know, look, you know, you're not getting arrested or anything, just need a quick word with you because you fit the description or whatever. That's another point. This fit in the description, which everybody thinks is just made up on the spur of the moment, it's easy enough to make up. The police service and the government, if they wished, could tighten it up and say, if you've got grounds to stop and search that relate to a description from a previous incident, let's have on the record of that stop and search the reference number of that incident. And then somebody can actually make that comparison when they're doing some oversight of the stop and search process.
Yeah, absolutely. Peter, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. We've got to run. Former Detective Chief Inspector of the Met Police. Common sense is required in the police. It's required everywhere. Luckily here at Talk, we are the home of common sense. Coming up, Tom Tugendhat's going to talk to us. We'll bring you all of that after the news right here on Talk.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. The shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in, or far ball, slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspect in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public has not been told the truth.
No, there's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Bloomberg UK reporting Ukraine has made the first long-range missile strike inside of Russia. These are the missiles that...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to very nearly 3 minutes past 8. The sun is up. It's shining across the skyscrapers of the London skyline. It's looking quite nice. I'm always optimistic about the weekend weather, thinking that, you know, it might not do what they said it was going to do. It might actually get quite warm. We are in the last day of February, 1st of March tomorrow. Maybe spring's in the air. Maybe there's a brand new beginning going on as well. Who can say? Certainly the newspapers this morning have been very kind to Keir Starmer, in my view. They're being a bit over-generous, making out that he's had some fantastic trip to America. He's managed to charm the pants off Donald Trump. The President of the United States of America has complimented him several times. He looks as though he might go along with him on the Chagos Islands deal. I'm not sure that's true. Looks like he might not give us any tariffs on our goods. I'm not sure that's true. I always said he wouldn't, but anyway, we'll see. He hasn't really quite decided what the deal is with Ukraine. We'll find out coming up over the next few days and weeks, I guess, as to how that's all going to work. Volodymyr Zelensky supposedly turning up in the White House today to sign a deal to hand over a shared scenario with the mineral deposits in Ukraine, digging them out of the ground and helping America to get back some of the money that they provided to Ukraine over the course of the last 3 years in their war with Russia. Coming up in this hour, Tom Tugendhat joins us, Conservative MP for Tunbridge, of course. We'll hear more from your voice notes as well. And here's one from Pete.
Lammy, only in America for a nice big fat steak, but this time it's on the American taxpayer rather than us. How dare that man go and even sit in the same room as President Trump with what he said about him in the past? Hypocrite, 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 trading after another hypocrite, hypocrite, hypocrite.
Yes, let's not forget that he did in fact call him a white supremacist, a racist, a neo-Nazi. I mean, not pleasant stuff at all. And he sat there because that's what politicians do, I'm afraid. But decent politicians don't. And I think Keir Starmer, who's also been very critical of Donald Trump in the past, even calling himself anti-Trump, was so genius with him. He was so over the top. He was so kind of slimy with his hands on his shoulder, giving him a letter from the King, telling him that, you know, he was a great man. I mean, I wouldn't mind so much, but he spent so much time saying the complete opposite for years and years and years and years. As I say, we'll get Tom Tugendhat's view on it as well. 0344 499 1000. We'll talk about the BBC and Gary Lineker's failure once again to understand what journalism actually is. The BBC have now declared that they made serious and grave errors, even allowing that broadcast to be made, never mind actually put out on a BBC channel. That's, of course, the Gaza documentary, which is riddled with all sorts of errors and all sorts of ethical problems as well. Also, we'll be talking about Katy Perry. She's going up into space, apparently, with Jeff Bezos, the man from Amazon. I'm asking you whether you would fire anybody else up into space. And one here from Joanne in Gould says, I think Gary Lineker needs a seat on your rocket into space. What a numpty. Well, absolutely right. This is Morning Glory, of course. Strap yourselves in. Let's get it on. And let me just remind you, for those of you waiting for a bumper sticker, you should be getting them today. They should be coming in the post. A couple arrived yesterday. If you get one, take a picture of it, stick it on your car, stick it on your fridge, stick it in your front window, wherever you want to do. Send us a picture of it. We can put it out onto social media, and you can join the revolution of common sense. Let's say hello to Tom at Tugendhat. Good morning, Tom.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed. I'm all right. I'm saying that the papers this morning seem to be rather unusually pleasant and good to Keir Starmer. I found watching that whole sort of hypocrisy fest yesterday in the Oval Office a bit cringe-making, to be honest. And I know that, you know, for Britain, some people will say, well, you know, it doesn't look bad that Britain are side by side with the Americans, and they're sitting there and it's all very friendly. I mean, I never thought for a minute that Donald Trump would humiliate Keir Starmer. Why would he? But I find it partly, I suppose, because Starmer's been so anti-Trump in the past. I just found it all a bit over the top.
Well, look, Mike, I mean, I share many of your thoughts. I just want our Prime Minister to have a good relationship with the President of the United States. It's really important for all of us. It's incredibly important for our economic future. It's incredibly important for our security. So, frankly, I'm just pleased that the relationship has kicked off well. Look, you know my thoughts on Keir Starmer. You don't have to tell me what he's been like in the past. I don't like the way that he's been leading the country, and I didn't particularly admire him much as leader of the opposition. But I'll tell you what, we do need a strong relationship with the United States, and whatever he's daftly said about presidential candidates in the past, it's good that he's got over his own well, how can I put it? His own personal views, yes, and is representing us in.
But is there not also a reflective moment on that? And I take your point, and I understand that, you know, if it's Team Britain that we're on, you know, obviously yes, we want to.
You're on it, and I'm on it. I mean, we both.
Well, we are. Yep. But also, I don't want to see Britain being sort of partially, I don't know, denuded to some extent by having to sort of prostrate ourselves in front of a president in order to gain his kind of his affection, you know, to sort of bribe him with a letter from the King, to sort of, you know, keep touching him on the arm and say, you know, we're all mates here, in an effort to just try and get him on side. Because you know as well as I do, Donald Trump is a pretty unpredictable guy. You know, I don't take the view that he's agreed at all that the Chagos deal is good, which is what the papers are saying this morning. He doesn't look as if he's agreed yet either about the tariff situation. He certainly hasn't agreed yet on what happens in Ukraine, which I know will be a subject that you want to talk about. You know, exactly where does it all go from here? I mean, it may be a good start, but has anything actually been decided?
No, frankly, yeah. And I've been speaking to friends of mine in Washington overnight, and some who are in the administration, some who are on Capitol Hill. And the reality is a lot of people are wondering right now exactly where this is going to end up. You're completely right to say that a lot of this hasn't been decided. What the president has said is that he's prepared to have a look at the deal. Well, that's what a reasonable person would do. Of course, he should be prepared to have a look at the deal. My own view, as you know, is that I think this is a bad deal for the United Kingdom. I happen to think it's a bad deal for the United States, but that's not my responsibility. That's the Americans' responsibility to look at it. And so I wouldn't be doing it. But for the president to be polite while the prime minister's in the room, I think is the bare minimum of sort of diplomatic courtesy. So let's wait and see what comes.
Yeah, no, listen, I've been saying let's wait and see for about 2 weeks now, because last week we were being inundated with sort of lefties who were complaining that Trump was rowing everybody out of the deal to sort Ukraine out, and that he was only sucking up to Vladimir Putin. Now we've got Volodymyr Zelensky flying to the US and hopefully meeting up with Trump today to sign a deal for the distribution of some of the mineral content of what's under the ground in Ukraine. So I think, whatever anybody thinks that Trump is doing, he appears to be running the game, doesn't he? He appears to be kind of, dictating the terms, really.
Well, read what the reports are on this Ukraine deal at the moment. Now, it's early stages. It's all slightly rumour and hearsay. It's all in the media rather than on diplomatic cables, if you see what I mean. But the deal appears to be a long-term economic relationship with Ukraine, which that's not an unreasonable thing to do. Look, a shakedown of a partner or an ally would be a terrible thing to do, but establishing a long-term economic relationship with a partner or an ally in order to make sure that everybody understands why you're there and what's in it for everybody is not an unreasonable thing to do. So let's look at the terms of the deal. I mean, I keep hearing that somehow Trump is the devil and he's an idiot. Well, I'm afraid I don't buy that.
No, me neither.
President of the United States twice by being an idiot.
Right.
And there are various different ways in which he can do some pretty good things. Now, I'm also aware that the tone that he brought to Munich, to the security conference, and the way that he's spoken about Putin leaves me worried, frankly. But let's be honest, these are difficult things to achieve, and he's got his own way of dealing with them. So let's see what the proof is in the pudding, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I mean, as far as what's happening on the ground in Ukraine, I mean, I don't suppose anything's changed really in the past 2 weeks, but there's certainly likely to be, I would say, people in Ukraine who don't want to keep fighting and keep losing their young sons and perhaps their young daughters to a fight that at the moment they don't really seem capable of winning.
Look, there is absolutely no question that everybody wants the war to be over. And let's be very, very clear that the war could end tomorrow if Putin stopped murdering Ukrainians, right? There is only one person who's invaded Ukraine. There's only one person who's invaded its neighbouring state, and that's Russia. That's Putin, who has invaded Ukraine. All this talk about sort of the Ukrainians provoked it or NATO provoked it is complete rubbish. Absolute rubbish. The Ukrainians didn't provoke it any more than the Georgians did, the Estonians did, or many other of Russia's neighbours did. It's complete lies. What is true, however, is that many young people are dying, and we want to stop that. Now, the country that has lost most people so far is Russia. They've lost between 700 and 800,000 people killed and injured. Now, that is a huge number, and it is certainly true that the Russian economy is collapsing. Now, what we need to do is to make sure that Putin is not allowed a pause that allows him to regroup, rearm, and come back fighting again in 26 or 27 or 28, but instead that we have a deal that holds. And that's what is so important. That's why we need to make sure this is a deal that works for everybody, that protects Ukraine, that gets Russia out of the occupation and stops the Ukrainian people being killed.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to Sir Gerald Howarth yesterday, and rather disappointingly, he was one of those who says we shouldn't be appeasing Putin, we shouldn't be moving to stop the war. What we should be doing is basically pushing Putin back and fighting more and giving more money to Ukraine so they can lose even more people. And I said, well, I think that, the time has passed on that one, hasn't it? And he doesn't seem to think, and there are many people who agree with him, that you can't sort of pen Putin in. I think you can. I mean, I think if you do you talk about the peace deal, whatever it may be, and you either have a commercial operation going on in Ukraine from America, which would mean he would stay out of it, or you would somehow get some commitment from him about, countries joining NATO if he ever tries to attack them, that kind of thing. There are ways, surely, of handling Putin which don't involve having a war with him.
Well, I would hope you were right. I mean, the problem with your argument, Mike, is that it's Putin who started the war, right? And, I know you would never argue that we should capitulate in front of a dictator. We shouldn't be just surrendering in front of dictators. And what Putin has done is invade a foreign country and murder its citizens. Now, the question is, what do you do now? Not what how you could have done it before. Now, I don't think there is any way that Putin is going to go back to Moscow and say, oh, well, that's all right then. I'm now going to stay in the Kremlin and not do anything else. He has already announced very, very clearly that he believes the whole of the Warsaw Pact is somehow part of his area of influence, that the old Russian Empire that we used to call the Soviet Union, which includes, don't forget, 3 NATO countries, Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, should be part of Russia again. He is very, very expansionist in everything that he says. If he wins, if he feels that he's winning, he will keep pushing. And, this is one of those moments where the crocodile only gets hungrier with the eating.
Yeah.
The reality is we have to make sure we are resisting Putin, not just for the Ukrainians, although that's important, because, Mike, you and I both know that he has been murdering people here in the United Kingdom, in Salisbury, in London, been murdering people across Europe too.
But isn't part of that attitude of his born out of the fact that when he did go into Georgia, when there was a problem there, when he did go into...
he caused the problem in Georgia.
Well, yeah, but I mean, according to Peter Hitchens, the Georgians also went into Russia, so it depends who you talk to. But then, as well, you've got what happened in 2014 in Crimea, when nobody really did anything to stop him, and there was no real reaction from the West, and so that kind of encouraged him to perhaps do what he's doing now. And maybe if there was a way of penning him, and when I say penning him in, I don't mean physically, I just mean, if there's some kind of deal that can be done which says that if you do this, this will happen, and so you don't do it, there must be some way of coming up with a deal like that, surely.
Look, I mean, that's really what we tried to do in the Budapest Accords of 1994, where 4 countries agreed to Ukraine's borders, and Ukraine agreed to disarm with its, hand over its nuclear missiles. And that one of the signatories of that, guaranteeing today's borders of Ukraine, was Russia.
Yeah.
That was one of the guarantees. And by the way, President Putin himself repeated his approval of the Budapest Accords in the 2000s.
Yeah.
So this isn't some sort of historic deal. This is something that Putin himself has signed up to.
Right.
Now,
would he not say that since that deal was signed, though, there was more countries joining NATO?
Well, there haven't been. So, I mean, it's,
Well, we've had 2 just recently. I mean, when we just had
but
Finland.
they only joined after...
Yeah.
Sorry, they only joined after he had invaded Ukraine.
Sure.
So that's a sort of, it's not quite a fair argument. Look, I agree with you on Crimea, but, Putin invaded and still occupies, by the way, in South Ossetia and Abkhazia, 2 large areas, I think it's about 40% of Georgia. He has snatched and still holds an Estonian border guard who was snatched in 2007. He's been attempting to assassinate political leaders in the Balkans, including the Prime Minister of Montenegro. This has been going on for ages. In fact, recently there were explosions and fires in the Czech Republic, and we think possibly even in the United Kingdom, connected to Russian overseas activity. This is a form of a terror state. I mean, it's a mafia gang with a petrol station attached that's calling itself a country and a government. It's not. It's a complete criminal enterprise, and Putin is the criminal in chief.
Interesting stuff. Listen, Tom, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. We must do it more often. Tom Tugendhat, Conservative MP for Tunbridge, who's also, of course, a man that knows a thing or two about the defence of the realm, which we all have to get involved with as well. Let's go to the phones, shall we? Tomo is in Merseyside, wants to talk about Trump and Starmer. Tomo, very good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Mike.
What can I do for you, sir?
Well, I just wanted to point out that when Starmer was talking to the president yesterday, and the president said it sounds like a pretty decent deal for the Chagos, the 140-year lease.
Yeah.
That's jumped up a bit, isn't it, from 99 years or whatever it was?
Right.
So I'm thinking to myself, when you bear in mind what Nigel Farage said in Parliament the other day, who is in line to buy that lease for the Chagos?
Yeah, well, who is?
Well, I think that it's going to be the president.
Yeah, well, you think the US is going to do it? See, I think they'll look at this deal and they'll say, actually, this is not a great deal for the US or for Britain, and we're not going to do it. Certainly not going to do it in the way that Starmer wants to do it.
No, well, the way Starmer was falling all over the president yesterday, it seems to me he can go along with anything. Well, he doesn't realise what he looks like to us.
Yeah.
He has no clue. He has absolutely no clue. He's completely hypocritical.
Yeah.
He goes back on anything he says. He can absolutely accept if the president says to him, it's 140 years and it'll be like, I don't know, 4 billion.
Yeah.
He'll have it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You can't rely on him to say anything that means anything because he'll completely flip his decision based on who's standing next to him. Tomo, thanks for the call. Appreciate that. What did Starmer actually achieve, says Gary? He only avoided being humiliated. And one from Pat who says, my favourite clip is the J.D. Vance moment on freedom of speech. Starmer nearly wet his pants. Well, I think he did. Maybe we should have a look at that one once again. Shall we play that?
Look, I said what I said, which is that we do have, of course, a special relationship with our friends in the UK and also with some of our European allies, but we also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British, of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and by extension American citizens.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time in the United Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time. Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's absolutely right. But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud of our history there.
So all of that he just said is wrong, right? Free speech has existed in the UK for a very, very long time, but he's trying to actually diminish it, and he's locking people up for saying things and for thinking things, right? And charging people for saying things and thinking things, and sending police around to people for saying things and thinking things. So that's absolute cobblers. And the idea that he's not going to cut across Americans is also wrong, because in the online harms bill and the way that they're looking at ways of curtailing the freedom of speech of various social media operations is absolutely trying to cut into Twitter, into X, into Facebook, into Instagram, all of that, all of whom are run by America. So, I mean, this man cannot lie straight in bed. It's 21 minutes past 8. Coming up, John Redwood will give us his view on the meeting of the minds in the White House yesterday.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
Something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:24, and it is, of course, Gaff Friday. And normally what we do is we show gaffs from the week that have been made by those of us who make programmes here at Talk. We've decided not to do that this week, though, because we're dedicating to Friday Gaff Day to Keir Starmer. And here's another one of his famous gaffs about the smuggling gangs.
To smash the people smuggling gangs.
There's people smuggling gang guns. I mean, really. Goodness me, he's the Prime Minister. Let's talk to Sir John Redwood, former Shadow Secretary of State former Shadow Secretary of State of Business and Trade for the UK, former Minister, of course, as well. Sir John, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I'm afraid that I seem to be running against the tide this morning because I was rather embarrassed by Keir Starmer's performance yesterday in the White House, and everybody in newspapers this morning seems to be talking about how well he did and, you know, how he managed to secure a good meeting with the President, and, you know, it's got to be good for Britain. I just spoke to Tom Tugendhat, who said sort of the same thing, and I do get that, but I'm sorry, I just think that some of the things that he said and did not put Britain in the greatest of lights. It looked to me as though there was no equality in the relationship. It was very much the sort of, you know, the boy and the man, wasn't it?
Well, he threw away a golden opportunity. I mean, I share your anger about it all. And I remember with a few others, right at the beginning when President Trump was first elected, advising the government and said, President Trump likes the United Kingdom. He'd like to come on a state visit. He's well disposed towards us. He actually wants a free trade deal. We know that because he was keen on it last time, and Mrs. May and the government said they weren't ready because of some EU rule or other. And so I said, send them a draft free trade agreement and then go for a meeting when you've got a win-win deal to sign.
Right.
He came away completely empty-handed from that meeting. He had enormous goodwill. That, of course, they got on perfectly well together because President Trump was a very good host and he wanted to be friendly, and he's very happy to come on a state visit. But there's nothing to show for it. I mean, they're wasting negotiating capital on trying to persuade America to sign up to the dreadful Chagos deal, which is bad for Western security, bad for the naval base, and very bad for British taxpayers. And they clearly haven't even briefed the president on that, because the president believed it's a 140-year lease and it's a 99-year lease. And we in Britain still are not allowed any of the details of this rotten deal, and we have to get them from the Mauritius Parliament. And Mr. Starmer is really letting us down on all this, and it was a shocking waste of opportunity yesterday.
Yes. Because it seemed to me, judging by the way that he was talking and acting, that what he wanted was not to be humiliated. I mean, that seemed to be the main sort of... Which of course, was never going to happen. As you say, Donald Trump is a very good host and would never do such a thing anyway, because it would be rather rude to do so. But, you know, rather than concentrating, as you say, on the fundamentals of getting something out of the meeting, he just wanted to have a nice meeting and sort of a couple of nice photo opportunities, a couple of nice exchanges, which really don't mean much of anything, really.
Well, indeed, and you know, I've been appalled at how bad the Labour government has been at spinning ever since they arrived in office, because I thought they'd be good at that. This was an occasion when I think they did actually get back to the old Manson-style spin playbook. So they spent a few days saying it would be an impossible meeting, extremely difficult for Sir Keir, very difficult to get on with a man like Trump, and so don't expect anything. And then because they get on in a perfectly friendly way, agreeing absolutely nothing, they come out and claim a triumph and say, there we are. Sweetness and light, isn't he a star, Sir Keir, because he's managed to tame the Trump, which of course was untrue, because President Trump didn't need taming.
No, exactly right. So where do we go from here then? Because, you know, even there doesn't seem to be much really that came out of it about Ukraine either, and about whether there would be any kind of, you know, peacekeeping force which might involve Britain or Europe, whether there would be any kind of, you know, rapprochement from the Russian side of things. Vladimir Zelensky is going there, I think, today to talk to Trump. But, you know, you've absolutely nailed it, because in addition to my embarrassment at how he behaved, you've actually raised a much more important factor here, that, you know, he's come back with literally nothing.
No, nothing. And you see, I think he was wrong to pose as a spokesman for a wider Europe. Macron had already been there and set out the Anglo-French plan to put in some troops into Ukraine. a plan which had been vetoed by Germany and Poland, who don't want to put any of their own troops in. I mean, how can you have a serious European force in Ukraine if Germany and Poland are not part of it as nearer neighbours of Ukraine and with big armies? And why go over that ground again when the president had made it perfectly clear to us, the wider public, as well as presumably in the private meetings, that he was not going to give a security guarantee for any force on the continent of Europe in Ukraine, and for perfectly good reason. You know, why has the West refused to allow NATO to get engaged in this war? Well, because we don't want NATO fighting Russia. And so you can't then suddenly say, by the way, there's an effective NATO guarantee, because as soon as you add America into France and Britain and some of the other Europeans probably coming along, you've got a NATO force.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, what's your view on all of that? Because there seem to be some in this country who think that we shouldn't be, in their words, appeasing Vladimir Putin. We should be continuing to fight him and push him out of Ukraine and continue to use British taxpayers' money to fund it. I'm not one of those that thinks that.
No, I'm not one of those either. And I think the West has behaved pretty badly as a whole under Biden's leadership, because the Biden approach, as you know, was to send too few weapons and to withhold some of the most powerful weapons so that you could keep the war going but not give Ukraine the likelihood of winning. And there's been slow attrition against Ukraine with massive number of deaths. And I think Trump is absolutely right to say that just paying enough and sending enough weapons to ensure hundreds of thousands more people die and Ukraine is wrecked even more with bomb damage is an extremely bad policy. And so I'm very pleased that the president is trying to explore whether there is some kind of peace deal or ceasefire that could lead on to the rehabilitation of Ukraine. And I hope that his meeting today with the president of Ukraine goes well, and talking about rebuilding on a joint venture basis with American civilian personnel being deployed into Ukraine to rebuild the economy. I think that's exactly what they should be doing. And there are various containment strategies for Putin. Obviously, I'm not a Putin fan, but the main containment has to be through NATO, and that means we do need to reinforce the NATO positions and make absolutely clear to Putin that those borders of NATO countries must never be violated.
Yes, I think I agree totally with everything you just said. Can I just ask you finally, before I let you go, about Mike Amesbury, the MP for Runcorn. He went back to court yesterday very quickly, very speedy appeal he managed to get. I don't know quite how he managed that. And he was going to be sentenced to 10 weeks in prison. He's now got that sentence suspended. He's got no apparent indication that he's going to stand down as an MP. I mean, surely that has to be wrong, doesn't it? Surely there must be some kind of recall, there must be some kind of by-election hold for a man who thinks it's all right to sort of beat up his constituents.
Well, I would imagine his constituents will up the pressure on him, even if there isn't a legal way. Surely any MP is sensitive to public opinion, and he pleaded guilty to this, and we can see what he did. It's dreadful. It's completely unacceptable for anybody to do that, but for someone who holds public office and is meant to be representing the people he's hitting, is just a complete scandal. And I hope his constituents make that crystal clear to him, because I think he should do the decent thing for once and resign.
Yes, quite. Sir John Redwood, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Have a great weekend. Former Shadow Secretary of State for Business and Trade in the UK, of course. Let's see what we've got here. Ian says, great show, Mike. How President Trump can stomach having communist Starmer in the White House, I don't know. I would not have him in my garden. I hope Nigel and Donald have something special up their sleeves for Starmer in the future. Michelle says, is it just me, or did Trump look as unconvinced and untrusting as Starmer as we all are? Little Lammy sat there, must have had everything clenched up every time the big boy spoke. What an utter embarrassment. Lying about free speech in front of the leader of the free world just takes the cake. Well, that's absolutely right. That particular exchange, which will play out again between J.D. Vance and the Prime Minister, was just absolutely awful. Complete and utter lies, a complete tissue of lies. Not one thing that Starmer said was true. And actually complimenting Donald Trump on bringing a Winston Churchill bust back into the Oval Office when he actually actively removed pictures of Winston Churchill and Margaret Thatcher from Downing Street. I mean, absolutely, give me a small break. Coming up, we're going to speak to Serge Kefi, Executive Head Teacher of St Thomas the Apostles School. But now, how about some money? Time's running out to get involved in our 25 grand competition. Here at Talk, we're giving you the chance to win this life-changing amount of money for 2025. So what do you need to do to get involved? All you have to do is text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post. It's as simple as that, but time is running out. Once again, to get involved, just text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post.
18 plus, UK excluding NI. Enter by SMS for £2 plus one standard network charge by 11 p.m. on March the 3rd, 2025. Or send your name, email and contact number to £25,000 cash competition, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on March the 6th, 2025. This is a News Broadcasting Network promotion. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
Yes, welcome back. 8:35. On free speech in the UK, says Jeremy in West Sussex, Starmer said he was proud of our history of free speech. Didn't say anything about the present or the future. Well, he did say, you know, and we will have it for some time to come. So he did actually say that it was all going to be going terribly well on the free speech front. But, you know, the whole point of Starmer is that he's a double dealer. The whole point of him is that he says one thing and does another, and he changes his mind regularly. He's not just Captain Flip-Flop, he's not just Captain Hindsight, he's Captain Liar. Paul in Hertfordshire says, Mike, fantastic show, anything keeping me sane. I'm so ashamed that Starmer is representing me and all of us in the UK on the world stage. Donald Trump was laughing at him as he exported the lies to the USA. We do not have any free speech now in the UK. How the media in this country can see this trip as a success is beyond me. Thank God for Talk. Well, that's what I think. I mean, I can't believe how many people are sort of saying, well, you know, you have to hope that we've got a good relationship with the United States of America. Yeah, but you don't have to grovel and crawl on your stomach and get on your knees and do all manner of things that would be basically, you know, humiliating in order to get the attention of the president, do you? This is Talk. We'll come back after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
8:38. I've got some breaking news for you, ladies and gentlemen. I can officially announce that we have now got the order in place for thousands more bumper stickers. I've just been told by the big bosses here that they've finally got it all sorted out. And so if you haven't yet got your bumper sticker, you will be able to get more bumper stickers coming your way. And we will give you all the information you need for that next week as we set up different systems, different email accounts so that you can send your emails to us requesting those bumper stickers, because it is the common sense revolution, ladies and gentlemen, and all the people that are followers of this show, the people who understand what common sense actually is and what it all means, can join all the part of the world that is, in fact, run by intelligent people who know what they're doing. And in that, I do not include the government, obviously, because they don't. So there's one. Stay calm and listen to talk. You can stick that on your bumper if you wish. And if you have got your delivery this morning, the Home of Common Sense, there's another one. We would love you to take a picture of it, stick it on your car and send it in to us, and we can put it out on social media, because we're also putting a map together of where all the people are that have got these bumper stickers. It's a great thing. It's an amazing thing. Let's talk now, though, to Serge Safai, Executive Head Teacher at St Thomas the Apostle School. Serge, very good morning to you.
Michael, how are you?
Good to see you. Haven't been on for a while, so welcome back. How are things? Yeah, we've just had a bit of a half term. We've got a brand new sheriff in town, as it were, with Bridget Phillipson. Not exactly making friends, it seems to be, in the world of education. What are you making of it so far?
What I'm making of it, I'm afraid, same old, as the topic you're going to ask me about in a minute. You know, why can't we get anything done properly? Bridget Phillipson, again, I question her background in education.
Yeah.
I know you get them on the programme on Talk a lot. Government advisors, you know, where do they drag them up from? Is anyone advising anybody about anything?
Right.
You know, so in terms of my schools, great, kids are great, but the way we're bringing them up isn't, and that doesn't seem to be changing too quick.
Right.
But people are waking up to, as usual, bad news about knife crime and everything else. And your channel talks about common sense. Well, it ain't that common, as I'm sure you know.
Right.
It's a shame. It's a real shame. And once again, we've got this nonsense with how they're spending the money for these free breakfasts for children who don't need it.
Who don't need them, yeah. I know. I don't understand it. I mean, I'm all for helping parents out if they need some help. If you need a breakfast club because you've got to go to work and, you know, you have to drop the kids off early, fine and dandy. But, you know, giving free breakfast to people, as you say, who don't need it, it seems to be a ridiculous waste of money.
Well, that's the key for me. Waste of money. You know, is it ignorance, so they don't know what they're doing? Is it incompetence, so it's a bit of a mistake? Or worse, is it just indifference, where they don't give us stuff because it's our money?
Right.
You know, and this is not a difficult thing to do. You've already got children on free school meals.
Yeah.
So why didn't you just say, let's give all those children on free school meals at lunchtime a free breakfast? Job done.
Yeah.
Job done.
I mean, doesn't Sadiq Khan think that all kids should get free school meals, because that way there's no kind of stigma of being poor?
No stigma, but he keeps forgetting they're already getting free lunch.
Yeah.
So, well, where's the stigma there then? If you're already getting free lunch, it makes actually a bit of sense. If we've decided that these kids need filling up and feeding properly, you know, let's give them a free breakfast as well.
Right.
That's actually common sense. So it's just an excuse because they don't want to do things properly. But once again, you know, what a waste of money.
Yeah.
And it says something, doesn't it, when we have to look across the pond and we see one or two people that maybe we used to regard as nutters, you know, thinking, well, that's not a bad idea, cutting out the waste, you know. And, I mean, I'm no fan of Elon Musk, but we need something similar where people need to be held to account for the sheer stupidity of how we waste our money. And I'm talking about education now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about national health system. Look at the amount of money that's wasted on defence, where we seem to build things and then next minute we trash them because they're not good enough anymore. No forward thinking. The same in education. And I've said this to you before. I don't know why someone hasn't got the guts to turn around and say, well, some of these things need long-term planning and we need to take it out of political hands. You know, stop this party against party because there's kids in the middle of it. We're in the middle of it. We're wasting a lot of money. And look at the state of our country at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely right. Has your school been impacted at all by the VAT on private schools? I know a lot of schools in sort of Surrey and Kent have been impacted because
no, we're in London, so less so.
You're probably less so, yeah. But an awful lot of states
join our school.
Yeah.
But once again, you know, this was something the government got a hell of a lot of stick for, because no one really knew what they were going to do with the money. Well, now we found out, haven't we? You know, we've got, and I'm not a great fan of public education, etc., etc. I've always been in the public sector, and mostly you know, these children will be all right because they've got great parents that prioritise education.
Yeah.
However, we have got kids in the middle of this, and it was ill thought out. And at the very least, if they were going to cause this furore, you know, why didn't they use the money properly? So not only have they upset lots of people, not only have they maybe affected quite a few kids, but they've actually wasted the money now.
Yeah.
So I'm aghast at the stupidity, the lack of common sense, etc., etc. But no one's talking to the right people, it seems to me, in any sphere of our country at the moment.
Yeah.
And you know where I come from in terms of, I just think of how this affects kids.
Yeah.
And now we've got kids not wanting to work. We've got kids growing up with never taking responsibility for what they do because we've abdicated our responsibility as adults to bring them up properly. And it just saddens me. And I suppose I'm quite pleased I'm at the end of my career, but it is sad because there's nothing wrong with our kids. But the way we're bringing them up is an utter disgrace.
Yes. No, I think you're absolutely right, and I'm really, really pleased to be able to talk to you. We'll have to do it longer next time because we need to get more of your very, very good views about everything in this country. And you're quite right, Sir Sefai there, quite right to say that nothing's being done properly. And money is being wasted right now, hand over fist, by every single government department, including the Education Department, including the Ministry for Defence, including the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, including the Home Office. It's all going on. We've been asking you who you'd send into space to go along with Katy Perry. Have a look at what Darren's got to say.
Good morning, Mike. Darren from Bradford. Just on the people going to space, if Keir Starmer gets a one-way trip, I'll happily chip in for the money. Thank you.
Absolutely right. Yeah, illegal migrants. Yeah, let's send some migrants to space as well. How about that? You can send them all, actually. Only 3% of them who come here on dinghies ever get sent back, ever get deported, right? And we've got a massive surge in asylum claims since June and July of this year. I wonder why. Is it because there's a new government and they've absolutely got the numbers so high, over 100,000 now? Maybe we should send all them to space too. Coming up, Jerry Hayes is going to join us, former MP and barrister. We're going to ask him about Mike Amesbury and the two-tier justice system in this country.
It's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. I'm Mike Graham and this, of course, is Talk. I think he was shocked. You could see the genuine shock.
I was like that.
Sees the boats coming in. Right, let's have the women and children first. He went, oh, just you lads, is it? Yeah.
He's been allowed to develop into this huge sort of problem for the BBC.
Yeah.
He'd love it, wouldn't he?
He would love it. That's why we're not doing it.
That's why we're not doing it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:49. I'm Mike Graham. Coming up, of course, in the final hour of the show, we're going to be talking to Chris Philp, Shadow Home Secretary down at College Green. And Kinsey Schofield joins us as well from the US of A. And, of course, we'll talk to Elliot Keck, Head of Campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance, because once again, as Serge Sapphire just told us, there's an awful lot of money being wasted here, there and everywhere. Jim in Dorset says this, Mike, my partner's a teacher, and this week they have all been given redundancy notice saying they have no choice to cut staff due to ongoing financial difficulties. More kids heading into state schools from private schools and state schools making teachers redundant. What an absolute mess. Thanks, Starmer. And Mike in Sussex says, I'm more than happy to fund school meals for those children that need it. However, these meals are not free. Someone has to pay, and that is us, the taxpayer. Well, that's right. And we get the bill every single time. You know, we get the bill for Keir Starmer going to the United States of America to be cravenly, bending the knee to Donald Trump, a man that he's previously said he doesn't like and he thinks is dangerous. What is going on? Let's talk to Jerry Hayes, though, former MP and barrister, of course, because Jerry, good friend of this show, we haven't spoken to him for a long time. In fact, I think it's the first time this year, Jerry. What's going on?
It is, because the criminal justice system is broken. There's too much work. There's not enough courts. There's not enough barristers. And Keir Starmer's government, what has he done to save money? He's cut 20% of the courts every week.
Well, I mean, of course, that's all very well for it's all very well for the ordinary jobbing barrister like you, Jerry. But if you're Mike Amesbury, the MP, you can suddenly get a rushed appeal system through without hesitation. I mean, how does he get an appeal on the sentencing scenario that he got so quickly?
You do when it's magistrates' court. Magistrates' court's Crown Court is fairly quick. Court of Appeal, whoa, you could wait a year, maybe more than that. So there's nothing particularly unusual about that. And you're probably going to ask about the sentence. Well, I looked up the guidelines this morning.
Yeah.
For something like this, 26 weeks is about right.
Yes.
If you plead guilty at the first opportunity, which you clearly did because it's a magistrate's court, you cut it by a third and it works out at 10 weeks. Next question is, look, should it be suspended? What's the test for suspension? Is there realistic chance of rehabilitation?
Yes.
And obviously with him, there is, because he's a man of good character. But the big thing is...
Well, he was a man of good character.
Not
He
anymore.
got filmed beating the crap out of a guy who said something to him he didn't like.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was. I was actually quite. It's not often I'm shocked, but I was really very shocked at seeing that. And then him saying, you don't threaten your MP anymore, do you? You don't threaten your MP, after hitting him when he was on the ground.
Yeah, 5 times.
Lucky he wasn't committed to the Crown Court on a more serious charge.
Yes. I mean, I would have said, if I was arguing for the prosecution, that this is clearly a man who's a danger to the public. He needs to go into prison for a short period of time in order to reminisce and think about that and to ruminate upon it and to decide why he should never do it again.
Yeah, the trouble is you have to have to be called dangerous in the technical sense. It has to be a specified offence. Now, if they'd have charged him with ABH, because I imagine this guy, I don't know, because it wasn't mentioned in the papers, got some unpleasant injuries, not really serious, but not trivial either. That's an ABH. That's a maximum of 5 years.
Yes.
Then he would have had really serious
But this is what troubles people, right? They think that this guy's been treated with kid gloves. It looks bad. Now, I can take all of your points, and of course they're all, as I would expect, Jerry, very, very much based in the law. But, first of all, so why didn't he get charged with a more serious offence? I would suggest it's because he's an MP and because maybe somebody had a word with somebody. Why did he suddenly get a lighter sentence than he could have got? Maybe because somebody had a word with somebody. Why has he now been told he doesn't have to serve any time in prison at all? It seems to me that it's all working in his favour, and I don't believe those things happen by accident.
Well, there's no evidence for any of that. We all
of course there isn't. There's no evidence. There's no evidence that there's oxygen in the air, but there is.
No. But I mean, I do 60% of my practice is prosecuting, and I have to make decisions not in cases like this because they're relatively minor unless you're the chap who got thumped. And CPS doesn't work like that. It really does not work like that. If there was any interference by any member of parliament or government minister, there would be all hell, and it would leak out.
Yes.
It really would. People would resign.
Yeah.
I would resign if that was happening. But
of course you would.
That. Yeah, we haven't got to that stage. But something you were talking about earlier, which is absolutely right. What has happened to free speech in this country? I mean, I was doing Good Morning Britain the other day on. Do you remember there was that granny who was on Facebook? And
Helen
what she
Jones.
Did, terrible, yeah. She did this terrible thing. She criticised a Labour councillor. So what was they sent the police along. No one thinks for one moment that she committed an offence.
No,
well,
they didn't even think she had. But here's a contrast for you. For Greater Manchester Police, who sent those 2 detectives round to have a word, they still have yet to do anything about the man who threatened Simon Danchuk, who was running as a Reform MP, with death. Right? He was arrested. They interviewed him. They passed the file to the CPS over a year ago. CPS have done nothing.
Yeah. That surprises me. It really surprised me. But I think probably because there's a political element here, and they've got to make sure they come to court, if they do come to court, with clean hands.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, people are entitled to say, where is the common sense in that?
Exactly.
It is deeply concerning about freedom of speech. And I'm afraid I do not trust Starmer. I do not trust Starmer's instincts. I mean, look what he did to pensioners and still do pensions in the cold. A Labour government, it's hard to believe. Absolutely appalling. Yesterday, bit of grandstanding. Actually, to be fair, he did quite well. But what Trump
I thought it was awful. I was embarrassed for him, and embarrassed for us as a country, actually, that he's the guy representing us.
Yeah, but he played Trump for a bit. Trump will play him. Heaven knows what's going to happen. It will be all cock a hoop. It will be overspun. Starmer comes back, the great hero, and they'll mess it up again. And it's interesting. I mean, it's slightly off-piste. The number, going back to Mike Ainsworth, the number of people that have been appointed to the government who've got criminal convictions.
Yeah. I know. Seems extraordinary, doesn't it?
Shock. Doesn't do anyone any research.
Also, let me ask you this question. What about Jonathan Reynolds, right, who posed as a solicitor, not only on his CV, spoke in the Houses of Parliament, in the House of Commons, and claimed that he was a solicitor, has also done it in various interviews over time. Now, according to the people that I talk to in the legal business, that's a crime.
Yeah, it is. If you're saying, "Oh, I'm a solicitor, give me some money to do something," that would be the crime. What he's done is just lied about what's on his CV, which just shows.
It's a pretty bizarre thing to do, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dreadful thing to do. Same with Rachel from accounts.
Yeah.
I mean, this great economist from the Bank of England. Hello, no. she was doing HR. Nothing wrong with HR. It's wonderful.
Rachel from Complaints, as she's now known.
Rachel from Complaints.
Well, let's not forget Louise Haigh, the convicted fraudster who's made the Secretary of State for Transport. It was unbelievable.
Oh, and Tugendhat Sadiq. Now, this is great.
Oh, yes.
She's made the Minister for Anti-Corruption. Yeah. And the stories about her and her aunt, who was the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh. I mean, for heaven's sake, don't they do any research at all?
Tulip Sadiq, the only woman I've ever come across who doesn't understand or doesn't know how she managed to get a house to live in. She's not sure whether somebody gave it to her or somebody bought it for her. She just doesn't know.
Oh, who?
I mean, listen, it's easily done.
Yeah, easily done. Particularly the ones abroad. Those lovely little villas. For God's sake.
My God. Listen, Jerry, we must do this more often because I've missed you. When you invite me for lunch, by the way?
We can do lunch now.
We can. The last time we did lunch, it lasted a very long time, but I'm quite happy to do that. So we'll be in touch. We'll get you sorted. Thank you very much indeed. Time for another gaff, I think. Keir Starmer gaff special. Have we got time for this one?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Thunderbirds are go.
Yeah, that was the famous Christmas tree lighting ceremony outside of Downing Street. What an absolute plonker that man is. Anita from Leicestershire says here, I'm with you on the Cringe Fest last night, producing the envelope like a fourth-rate game show host. If only the envelope contained one of your bumper stickers. Yeah, that would have been great, wouldn't it? If you are in receipt of one of those bumper stickers, send us the picture, put it on your vehicle, put it on your fridge, put it in your front window, wherever you want to put it. Take a picture and send it to us, and we will be able to pass it out as to everybody else. Coming up in the next hour, Chris Philp joins us, Shadow Home Secretary, Kinsey Schofield as well. This is Morning Glory, and we'll be back after the news.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened.
I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. The shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in, Oivamo slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspect in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public has not been told the truth.
No, there's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Bloomberg UK reporting Ukraine has made the first long-range missile strike inside of Russia. These are the missiles that Biden has approved for.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 3 minutes past 9. I'm Mike Graham. We have entered the final furlong of the show, the fourth hour. Of course, we do 4 hours every single weekday morning from 6 a.m. To 10. The sun is up, it's shining, making the buildings shimmer in what looks like a rather nice sunny day. But whether or not it's a summery sunny day, I don't know. It was pretty sunny yesterday, but it was still really, really cold. I don't know what the weather's doing this weekend, but it will be the 1st of March tomorrow. If you pay things on the 1st of the month, it's going to be a bad weekend because it means that all the money's going to disappear out of your bank account. Unless, of course, you are in the Labour government, in which case you just replenish your bank account with a load of expenses that you get from the common fund, basically. Coming up, we're going to speak to Chris Philp, Shadow Home Secretary. We'll ask him about Mike Amesbury and whether he should resign his position as an MP. We'll also update you on what is going on with the bumper sticker situation. We're printing a load more, so we're going to be able to tell you very, very soon where you can now request more if you haven't done it already. But every single bumper sticker that's been ordered so far by all of you has now been sent out to all of you. So if you haven't got it today, you should get it tomorrow, certainly before the beginning of next week anyway. Let's have a voice note from Patty.
Morning, Mike. Patty from Coulsdon. When Sly Keir talks about freedom of speech, he doesn't mean for us, he means for him, so he can lie his way through any situation to get the best for him in any outcome, while he clamps down on our freedoms throughout our lives. He's a horrible, untrustworthy man, and I can't wait for the end of his tenure. Anyway, great show. Have a lovely day. Bye.
Cathy, thank you very much indeed. That's how people feel about this man. He is an absolute horror show. We'll play a few clips of him on his sedulous trip to the Oval Office yesterday, practically on his knees to Donald Trump, patting him on the arm in a very wanton and unwelcome way. I mean, Trump clearly wasn't even taking any notice of that, producing a letter from the King, as if he was some kind of, as they say, cut-rate game show host, just going, oh, I've got this letter from the King. It was really embarrassing, really cringe-making. I'm sorry, I don't buy it that this is good for Britain. It doesn't look good for Britain. He sat there like a schoolboy in the headmaster's study. 0344 499 1000. Also, we've been asking you who you would send up into space alongside Katy Perry, who's joining a mission into the stratosphere with various people, including Jeff Bezos. The number of migrants being housed in hotels, by the way, this is another thing that Keir Starmer said was coming to an end. He said we're actually winding all of that down. Has actually gone up. It's past 38,000. Asylum claims hit a record high last year. We're actually housing more and more of these people in hotels. 108,138 people applied for asylum in the UK in 2024. That's 18% up on 2023. So thanks, Starmer. Also, we're learning that the young people aged between 16 and 24, nearly 1 million of them, are not working, not studying, and not even looking for a job. Brilliant, isn't it? Welcome to modern Britain. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. My goodness me. What you would give to give some advice to Donald Trump about Keir Starmer. There are some people who think that Keir Starmer did a good job yesterday. Some people in the media think that he did a good job. Quentin Letts stands alone, of course, as one of the sketch writers who makes fun of the way that Keir Starmer looked yesterday. But what an unlikely bromance, it says on the front of the Daily Mail. Trump backs Starmer's Chagos plan during love-in at the Oval Office. President promises to agree terrific UK-US trade deal soon. I'm not sure I go along with any of that, to be honest. Let's see what Chris Philp thinks. He's a shadow Home Secretary. Chris, a very good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Good morning.
Now, I know that we're all supposed to be on Team Britain, and we're all supposed to say, isn't it great that the American president gets on so well with our Prime Minister, and it must bode well for the future. But I was frankly a bit embarrassed watching the sort of craven display by Sir Keir Starmer, sort of crawling and creeping around as if he needed to be taken notice of and as if he needed to get favours from Donald Trump. I know buttering up Donald Trump perhaps is a strategy that some people would use. I just thought it was a bit kind of, you know, demeaning, really, for Britain.
Yeah, well, Keir Starmer was definitely bending the knee, metaphorically, to Donald Trump last night. But look, I think I've still got some concerns about what came out of that meeting. I mean, firstly, on the Chagos Islands deal, look, I know Donald Trump seemed to indicate he wasn't going to oppose it, but that's from an American perspective. It's not American taxpayers that are going to be paying for it. It's British taxpayers. Right. And for British taxpayers and for the United Kingdom, the Chagos giveaway is a shameful disgrace by Keir Starmer. Could cost us up to £19 billion. That's £1,000 for every working household in this country to give away territory that is ours already. It's never belonged to Mauritius. It's over 2,000 miles away from Mauritius, and there's no legal judgment telling us we need to do it. There's a non-binding resolution by a court that doesn't even have jurisdiction, where one of the most senior judges is a member of, or is appointed by, the Chinese Communist Party. Right. So this is absolute madness that Starmer's getting into here. I tell you what, I'll be voting against that in Parliament, and so will the Conservative Party.
Right. And I also don't agree with some of the paper coverage of it this morning, that Trump has kind of gone along with the deal. I mean, he basically said he needs to look at the details. He seemed to think it was a 140-year lease, not a 99-year lease. So it may well be that he hasn't even seen what it's going to mean for the security of the United States and of Diego Garcia in particular.
Yeah. That's right. I mean, this is a critical military base. Mauritius has close connections to China, which, as we know, is aggressively expanding across the South China Sea and beyond. So this is a critical military base. And you know, as I say, Mauritius has links to China, which are highly questionable, to put it mildly. And as we know, having a sovereign base, which is ours in perpetuity, we have complete control, is much better than simply a leasehold. I mean, firstly, it expires in 99 years. Yeah. But secondly, if a lease is revoked, or if the Mauritian government in 10 years' time says, oh, we've changed our mind, what's our remedy? Our remedy is to go to the court in Mauritius and beg or plead in front of a Mauritian judge. I don't imagine we'll make much progress. So this is a terrible, terrible deal financially for British taxpayers. Every single person watching and listening today is going to be paying for Starmer's terrible deal, and it's bad for global and national security as well. Absolutely appalling. And look, on the trade deal, I mean, the last Conservative government was negotiating a trade deal with Trump. Look, I like free trade. Look, I hope that goes well. But, you know, there's a lot of water to go under the bridge, a lot of details to negotiate before that actually goes anywhere. So that's very early. And the other point worth making is that even an American trade deal is not even going to begin to scratch the surface of making up for the damage done by Labour's terrible budget last October. There are billions and billions of pounds of swinging tax rises that are going to come into force in just a few weeks' time at the beginning of April on businesses, on working families, on farmers. Pensioners have been hit already. And that is going to do devastating damage to our economy. We can already see growth has gone down, inflation has gone up, unemployment has gone up, all as a result of Labour's disastrous budget. And I'm afraid to say a trade deal with America or anybody else is not going to make up for the devastating effect on jobs and on cost of living that Starmer and Reeves and their budget inflicted last October.
Yeah, you know, it's hard to believe, isn't it? I mean, there's meant to be some kind of a statement supposedly being made by Rachel Reeves but towards the end of March, but it's hard to see what she can actually do unless she reverses all of it, which I imagine they won't do because they seem very stubborn and curmudgeonly about changing their minds about fiscal policy. But, I mean, what can she offer anyone to have any kind of hope that business is going to get better in this country?
Yeah, well, I think you're right, Mike. The only thing they can do is to reverse the disastrous decisions in the budget, which were hiking up things like, you know, national insurance, for example, that's going to affect everybody, businesses and everything else. What they did to farmers was shocking. What they did to pensioners, taking winter fuel payment away from almost every pensioner, at a time when Keir Starmer was personally loading up on £100,000 worth of freebies from his special friend Lord Ali. I mean, the public are sick of that, I think, and it is damaging to the economy. The only thing that will fix it is reversing all of those terrible things they've done. And clearly what's happened in the last 4 or 5 months since that disastrous budget is businesses have been telling the Labour government they've got it wrong. And things like the announcement on Heathrow is like a desperate attempt to try and stimulate a bit of growth. But building look, I support a third runway in Heathrow, but building a third runway in 15 or 20 years' time is not going to help anyone when the tax rises are coming in like 4 or 5 weeks from now. So the only thing that will really fix this is a U-turn by Reeves. Maybe Starmer's going to have to fire her. I don't know, but they need to cancel those tax rises because they are disastrous for businesses and working people and pensioners and farmers and everybody else. Totally. We're all going to pay the price.
Yeah, and let me just ask you one final thing about the asylum numbers that came in yesterday. A total of 108,138 people applied for asylum in the UK in 2024, 18% increase on 2023. And also, despite the fact that Keir Starmer said that they're basically going to be phasing out the use of hotels for illegal migrants coming here, more illegal migrants being housed in hotels than ever, 38,000 of them.
Yeah, that's right. Keir Starmer fought the election promising to end the use of asylum hotels for illegal immigrants. And let's be clear, that's what they are, illegal immigrants. Yeah. Despite the fact he said he would end the use of these hotels, it's gone up, as you say, by 8,500. The reason for that is that people illegally crossing the English Channel has gone up by 28% since the election. And the reason it's gone up is that the Rwanda deterrent was due to start at the end of July. Those planes taking... So if someone crosses the channel on a small boat, they'd be stuck on a plane and sent straight to Rwanda. It's common sense that would then deter people, because if you're in France, why would you cross the English Channel on a small dinghy if you're going to wind up in Rwanda? Pretty quickly people would stop. And in fact a similar approach was successful in Australia about 10 years ago. But you know what? Labour cancelled that deterrent. They cancelled the first flight before it even took off. It was due to take off on July the 24th. And because they cancelled that Rwanda deterrent stupidly, after all that work the Conservatives did in government, you know, we had to build all the court cases, we even had to pass a new law early last year to get it all sorted out. It was all ready to go, and they cancelled it. And this is the result. Illegal immigration across the Channel up 28%. 8,500 people more in these hotels, and you know who's paying for that? You, me, and all of your viewers and listeners are paying for it. I think it's getting on for £10 million a day now to accommodate these illegal immigrants. It's completely unacceptable. It's got to stop, and the only way we're going to stop it is a removal deterrent where if somebody crosses, they get kicked out straight away, whether it's to Rwanda or anywhere else. Doesn't really matter where, but that deterrent would almost immediately stop the crossings overnight. It worked in Australia, it would have worked here, but that idiot Starmer cancelled it.
Yeah, unbelievable stuff. Chris, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Chris Philp, Shadow Home Secretary, obviously as angry about Starmer as I am. Good morning, Mike. Fantastic show, as always, says Luke. Regarding Mike Ainsbury and two-tier sentencing, what happened for the need for justice to be seen to be done? Also, how utterly embarrassing was Keith on his visit to Washington, D.C. yesterday? Have a great weekend. Richard says Starmer should get a letter, and inside it says traitor. Says Richard on the Costa del Sol. Any chance should we bring back Friday drinks tasting, says Fiona. I know it might be a bit early, and we'll probably make the rest of the news about Labour more palatable. Well, Fiona in Leeds, I mean, it would be nice, but the thing is, we should do it on Thursday. The problem with Friday drinking for me is that I have to get in the car and drive, so I can't really do it on a Friday. But, you know, maybe we'll think about bringing it back occasionally for a special occasion. Let's go to the phones. Nick's in London, wants to talk about Starmer. Hello, Nick.
Hello, Michael. Morning.
Good morning. What can I do for you, sir?
Well, it's Keir Starmer and over with Trump, President Trump. Every Prime Minister gets summoned over to Washington to meet the American President.
Yes.
One. So it's equally embarrassing and cringeworthy when they all try and pretend they're mates with him and have always been mates with them.
Yeah.
Donald Trump won't be fooled by this at all. He'll say all of the right things for things that he wants, but...
And of course he told us, didn't he, that he told us before Starmer arrived that it was Starmer's request. It wasn't his request, actually, this time around.
Well, of course it is.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the Western countries are going there. Macron the other day.
Yeah.
And they all want to cozy up to the big beast in the jungle, which, you know, is common sense.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I mean, but the thing is, I've never seen anybody quite so craven as Starmer, and particularly given what we know he actually thinks about Donald Trump, because we've got a tweet from when he was leader of the opposition, when Boris Johnson sort of got endorsed by President Trump, and he basically said what a terrible idea it was and how awful it was that Donald Trump. It says everything you need to know about Boris Johnson. He's cozying up to Donald Trump. You know, so he's a complete hypocrite.
Oh, agreed. But on a hypocrite on so many things, so many, ideas.
Yeah.
He's a hypocrite and liar on everything.
He is.
I don't think, though, Donald Trump will be taken in at all.
No, I suspect he won't be, because he'll know exactly what Lammy said about him. He was sitting right in the same room. He knows exactly what Starmer said about him. In fact, why don't we play a bit of that? Because Starmer, of course, pretended, for all that was good, that he thought Donald Trump was his best mate, patting him on the side of the shoulder. I mean, it's really, really awful. But this is what he really thinks about him.
Look, I said what I said, which is that we do have, of course, a special relationship with our friends in the UK and also with some of our European allies.
Morning, great show as always, says Emma. Regarding free school meals, since Sir Sadiq has got involved, the schools are worse off. The funding doesn't actually cover the cost, so the quality and quantity is going down. I'd be more than happy to pay for school meals. They did the same with so-called free childcare hours, and now they're going to do the same with breakfast clubs, which I use, and I'm also happy to pay for. They are using children for sound bites. Emma in London. Thanks very much indeed. We've got Plank of the Week coming up very, very shortly, coming up at 7 o'clock tonight. Let's have a look at what's on it.
The National Fire Chief Council have said basically that the fire service of England and Wales, Scotland and so on is too white and too male.
Right.
And you kind of scratch your head thinking, well, there might be a reason why most firemen are male. Because, and look, shoot me down in flames, no pun intended if you want. But of course,
this isn't a smoke screen.
Here we go. Men are, I mean, Samara, forgive me for saying, but you'll agree with this, men are stronger than women? Generally,
Sure, yeah. I mean, biologically.
I mean, I'd love you to be pulling me out of a kind of burning building.
I wouldn't love to be doing that.
I actually would probably prefer it to be a Mike or a Jeremy or maybe not.
Even me.
What, Steve, you tell me? Come on, of course you would.
At 7 o'clock, of course. Don't miss it. You can find it on our YouTube channel. Let's get a voice note.
Good morning, Mike. Love your show. Watch you and talk all day whilst I'm sitting here at work at my desk. Just wanted to say one thing. I'm listening and I agree with the CV's scandals of your Mr. Reynolds and Rachel when it counts. And obviously we're saying that they shouldn't be in the position they are because they lied on their CV. What strikes me as odd is the manifesto that the Labour brought out, which fundamentally is a CV of the next government of this country. They lied on every aspect. Why is it we have to wait for another election before we can vote them out so they can lie again? It baffles me. It really needs to change. I don't know if there's any ideas, suggestions, or have I got that completely wrong? But love your show, Mike. Keep up the great work. talkTV is the only one I listen to. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Brilliant stuff. That's from Mark. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, a CV effectively for a Labour Party or a Conservative Party or the Reform Party is what their manifesto is, what their contract is. That's what the Reform Party called it, a contract with the people. The Labour Party called it a manifesto. But everything in it wasn't true. Everything in it they said they would do, they didn't do. Everything that they said they wouldn't do, they did do. That's the problem. You know, they told the farmers in December before the election in 2023 that they would not go after them on inheritance tax, and then completely turned around and did it. They said they wouldn't go after pensioners for the winter fuel allowance, then they went ahead and did it. You know, it's just absolutely and utterly unbelievable. Donald Trump, JD and his other advisors see through Starmer. I agree with everything you say about him, says Diana. And John in Leicester says, hypothetically, if Starmer had a face-to-face meeting with Vladimir Putin, what would he say? Would he about turn and say he was fantastic? Well, do you know, it's almost impossible to know with Starmer, but he's such a creep to Donald Trump. I find it quite remarkable and quite sick-making, frankly. We're going to talk coming up to Kinsey Schofield. We'll play her that bit of terrible footage of Starmer pulling the envelope out of his pocket and presenting it to Donald Trump and saying, "Is the letter from the King fixing the foundations? Would you like to come for a ride in Windsor?" I mean, come on, come off it. It's 21 minutes past 9.
Earlier this week, after he pleaded guilty to assault, a drunken, repeated, vicious punching of a constituent. His Runcorn constituency, he was sentenced to 10 weeks, but it's been now, after an appeal at Chester Crown Court, suspended for 2 years. He very likely will still face that recall petition, and a by-election is likely to be called, but not a day behind, well, more than a couple of days behind bars for punching someone. Two-tier justice, anybody? God forbid he'd written a hurty tweet to the constituent rather than punched him. He'd probably still be behind bars for 20 years.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 24 minutes past 9, just over half an hour to go, and then the weekend will be here. Alex Phillips is coming in at 10 just before that to tell us what's coming up on her show. Plank of the week later on, of course. Plus, sticker stuff to talk about. If you haven't got your sticker yet, you should be getting it any day now because it all went out. It's all gone from the postal department here in the UK, so it should be winging its way to you. We already had a couple coming in yesterday. I expect to see quite a lot more over the course of the weekend, over the course of today. Join the home of common sense. It's a revolution, by the way. Take a picture of your sticker when you get it, put it on the back of your car, stick it on the bumper, stick it in your window, stick it on your fridge, wherever you want to stick it wherever you want, within reason, of course. A few people have asked for one for a wheelchair. We've asked for one for a canal boat. We've had one for people who want some for their bike as well. John Rental asked for one for his bike, which I think we'll do. How about this from Howard in Suffolk, who's nominating quite a few names of people to be sent up to space alongside Katy Perry. And let's go with the list. Paula Venables, Klaus Schwab, Ursula von der Leyen, Sadiq Khan, James O'Brien, Matthew Hancock, Sangeeta Miska, Archbishop Wokeby, Gary Lineker, Tony Blair, Bill Gates, George Soros, Gina Miller, Matthew Wright, Jeremy Vine, Sheila Fogarty. I can't argue with any of those. They're brilliant. Imagine sitting on a plane with that lot. Eh? You'd throw yourself off, wouldn't you? You'd be like, excuse me, where's the parachute? I need to jump off. I need to get out. I can't sit with these idiots. Let's talk to Kinsey Schofield, though. First, we've got a voice note from Kieran. Go on.
Morning, Mike. Kieran here over in Clackmannanshire near Stirling. Just a couple of points for Keir Starmer's trip to see President Trump. The first one is, when President Trump said about facing the Russians alone, a real man would have turned around and said, I would make a good go of it, but I'd feel even better if my best friend was standing there beside me, just in case we did go down. Second point, G.D. Vance and the claims of no free speech in Britain. Why did no one challenge Keir Starmer the minute he said that there was free speech in Britain? Britain doesn't have free speech. At the moment, there are political prisoners, i.e. anyone who says hurty words online, in jail. Great show. Cheers, pal.
Thanks very much indeed. Clackmannanshire, there's a name I haven't heard for a while. Kieran, well done. Thank you very much indeed. Let's talk to Kinsey Schofield, because she may or may not have watched that cringe fest in the Oval Office yesterday, but I'm going to show it to her anyway, just because it involves the King, which is a specialist subject of hers. Kinsey, very good morning to you.
Can I nominate Meghan Markle to go to the moon with Katy Perry and Jeff Bezos?
Can we put Harry on there as well? Nice.
Exactly, yeah. You know, him too.
You'd have to explain to him where he was going, obviously, because he wouldn't really understand, would he? I'm going to show you this, which I think is one of the most cringy things I think I've ever seen on television. This is Keir Starmer talking to the President of the United States of America and offering him a trip to see the King.
It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. That is really nice. I must make sure his signature's on that. Otherwise, it's not quite as meaningful. It is, and that's quite a signature, isn't it? Beautiful. He's a beautiful man, a wonderful man, and we appreciate it. I've known him, gotten to know him very well, actually. First term and now second term. Perhaps you'd like to say what that very important paragraph...
Yes, so this is a letter from His Majesty the King. It's an invitation for a second state visit. This is really special. This has never happened before. This is unprecedented. And I think that just symbolises the strength of the relationship between us. So this is a very special letter. I think the last state visit was a tremendous success.
It was.
His Majesty the King wants to make this even better than that. So this is truly historic, an unprecedented second state visit. He wants to talk that through with you.
And that says at Windsor. That's really something.
I mean, I just feel kind of icky generally. Just the touching, you know, the hand on the shoulder. It's like, what's he doing?
Flirt alert. I mean, does Keir Starmer have a crush on my president?
I think
it was
he does.
It was a little creepy, as you said.
Yeah.
But I also didn't like the way that he presented it as if this was some big, giant surprise, because if you read Melania Trump's autobiography, you'd know that she's very close pen pals with King Charles and has been for years. I would expect nothing less than for the president to reunite with the king. But can I tell you, I imagined Camilla, the Queen, laughing over tea at the idea of President Trump calling the king a beautiful man. I do imagine that they likely got a kick out of the use of those words.
Yes.
But you know, in America, we know how much Donald Trump absolutely adores the royal family. We assumed the feeling was mutual. He said recently that he would not deport Prince Harry because, well, he said he's got bigger issues on his hands.
He certainly has.
But we heard from, his wife is terrible, is what Trump said. But we heard from sources that he adores the king so much and realized that Harry would be a bigger thorn in the king's side in the UK, so he wouldn't put him in that position. And I just feel like I've heard Eric Trump talk about being a child and being around the royal family. So to me, that this is a relationship that is clearly important to President Trump. And for Keir Starmer to show up and act like he is the one that's facilitating this relationship, that's what's so offensive to me, because the relationship exists and it's good.
Yes. I mean, the relationship has always been good between Donald Trump and the royal family, as you say. The relationship between Keir Starmer and Donald Trump hasn't always been so good, because Keir Starmer used to think he was dangerous, and he was sitting there in the same room in the Oval Office with David Lammy, who last time he came to Britain on a state visit, which Starmer referred to as very successful, was threatening to chain himself to the railings of Downing Street to protest against the fact that this ghastly, racist, misogynist member of the white supremacy group had come to Britain.
Well, I do have to. Marco Rubio never went to that extent, but I saw Marco Rubio sitting in the room, and it did make me laugh thinking about all the times I heard President Trump call Marco Rubio little L-I-D-D-L-E, little Marco Rubio. So this is one of those bizarre professions where you are two-faced. You just are. And Keir Starmer is that. He completely is. But I saw cartoon hearts shooting out of his eyeballs as he sat there next to Donald Trump. And based on the fact that I'm old enough to remember during the 2024 campaign season, Labor sending members over to the United States to campaign for Kamala Harris, that did surprise me to see Keir Starmer so lovey-dovey towards him.
I know. It's just, I mean, I just felt so depressed about it yesterday watching it. I just thought, you know, he's basically demeaning not only himself, but the kind of the whole nation, that this is what we have to do, produce a letter that presumably could have been sent by a more reliable method to
like
Donald
Prince
Trump.
William. I'm sure Prince William.
Yeah, as if, you know, but as
the
if
king would rather.
Right, as if to say, you know, but we can offer you, you know, a trip to see the king, and hopefully that will cheer you up and make you feel better, and I mean, maybe
like
do some business with us.
Like it's Disneyland.
I know.
Yeah, like it's Disneyland.
I know, it's just awful. I can't get over it. And I mean, the papers here are treating it as though it's been a sort of bromance and it's all worked out well for Britain, and Starmer's done a great thing by sucking up to Trump. You know, it's not because I don't like Trump. I do like Trump. I just know that Starmer doesn't, and so I can't stand the hypocrisy of it all.
Well, that's because you're a man with a good moral compass, and
yes.
you know it doesn't
It's not what
take
everybody
that.
says, but there we, I'll take it from you. Thank you very much.
It doesn't take usually people involved in politics. That's one of the things that they lack.
Yes.
But yeah, I agree with you. I felt like it was a little icky, having the backstory. They were putting on a big show for us, and that's fine. The letter from the king was. It looked like an act of desperation, but it was the kind of pizzazz we like here in the States. Your royal family is something that we are fixated on. So I thought it looked desperate, but I think it worked in their favor.
Well, very possibly so. We've got to talk about Meghan Markle. She's in the papers here today after appearing on her Instagram yesterday, doing a little dance around the kitchen with somebody who apparently...
Hey, Mike, if you put Meghan doing that dance to the YMCA, it's frightening how much it looks like she's doing the Trump dance. She's doing the Trump dance.
And that would really horrify her if she thought that's what you were interpreting from it. But apparently she put it up there, then took it down, and then put it back up again. What was that all about?
Well, she tends to upload things incorrectly because I think she was away from Instagram for so long, so she doesn't understand like vertical, the real method. Perhaps it was something technical like that. I felt like this went up because she was trying to distract from the 60 Minutes Australia interview with Jason Kanoff that reignited those bully rumors. Because in this little video, she's hugging crew members, she's giggling with crew members, she's dancing with crew members, and she's thanking them. So it very much felt like, ignore Jason Kanoff, ignore those bully allegations that are resurfacing, focus on how sweet I am, focus on my new show. But did you see the new reports that Prince Harry's visa paperwork could be released on the same day as Meghan Markle's show?
Oh, wow.
Which could potentially divert attention away from Meghan's rebrand number 476, and could, that could upset her if all eyes are not on her new project. If this information is released and there's anything compelling within that visa information.
Absolutely right. Well, we should look forward to that because I can hardly wait. I can hardly contain myself with the amazing show that I'm going to be able to see about Meghan in her kitchen, which isn't actually her kitchen, with a load of people who are her friends, who aren't really her friends, doing things that she doesn't really do.
Yeah, like freezing water and flowers in water, because that's compelling television.
My goodness me. I must ask you, while I've got you on, about that terrible story yesterday about Gene Hackman and his wife found dead in their house in Santa Fe in New Mexico. It now turns out today, we were told yesterday the police thought it might be some kind of double suicide, but we're now told this morning that the bodies were mummified and they may have been there for a couple of weeks. They may have died some time ago. It's a very strange story, isn't it?
It just keeps getting weirder and weirder. So what the information we currently have, this is a fluid situation, it could clearly evolve, is that the door was open when a caretaker showed up and stumbled upon the bodies. The bodies could have potentially been there for 2 weeks. Now, his daughter at one point said she wondered if it was carbon monoxide poisoning, but there were pills all over the bathroom where his wife was found near one of the dogs. Gene was found in a different room, and 2 of the dogs were found alive on the property okay. So, that's where some of the questions lie. Where were these other 2 dogs to where they weren't affected if this was potentially a carbon monoxide incident? And why was the door open? When did the door open? Why were Gene and his wife in separate rooms? There are a lot of questions, but sad knowing what this man gave to the entertainment industry before it turned upside down.
Right, one of the great actors, one of the great stars. Good to see you. Kinsey, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Have a lovely weekend. Kinsey Schofield there, reporting into us from the US of A. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Roger Bolton, former BBC man, of course. We'll get from him the process of how it's possible for a documentary to be commissioned, to be made and to be presented as fact, when in fact it was none of those things, I'm afraid. And even the BBC have now admitted that Gaza documentary that they put out a week ago Monday was an absolute travesty of the truth. It's 9:37.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:39, very nearly 9:40. Eleanor says this, morning, Mike, I'm with you all the way. Starmer made me feel sick, and the letter from the King, everyone knew he was taking one. The awful way he gave it over. Trump will only do what he wants, regardless of what he says. Can't believe we've got to wait 4 years to get Starmer out. And Ivor says, yeah, Starmer was like a little boy who just come home from his first day at school with a good behaviour certificate, waving it proudly. Yeah, he's just put out a tweet as well, thanking the President of the United States of America for hosting him. He goes, the bond between the UK and the US couldn't be stronger. Thank you for your hospitality at POTUS. And there's a picture of J.D. Vance, David Lammy, Starmer and Trump sitting in the Oval Office. I mean, one for the mantelpiece, I'm sure. And I think one of the final ignominies as well, thanking him and crediting him for bringing the bust of Winston Churchill back into the Oval Office when he actually got rid of paintings of Winston Churchill from his own office here in the UK. Unbelievable. Let's talk to Roger Bolton, who is, of course, a former BBC man. We occasionally have differences of opinion on here, but I'm sure we'll agree on this one today, which is the BBC has admitted to serious and unacceptable flaws in the making of its Gaza documentary, Gaza, How to Survive a War Zone. They failed to disclose the child narrator was the son of a Hamas operative, and they also failed to notice, in fact, that some of the footage had been tampered with and the subtitles had been interfered with to make the people say things that they hadn't actually said. Roger, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I'm hoping you might be able to give me a bit of an insight, Roger, as to how something like this could have happened and what the process is for a commissioned sort of documentary to go through the system before it comes out on the television.
Well, let's start with this. There's a propaganda war going on, and the messenger has just been shot. The reality is there are about 50,000 people have been killed in Gaza, about 2,000 just less Israelis.
Well, that's the figure that Hamas have given out, by the way. So let's not repeat any of their propaganda, shall we?
Not challenged by the Israeli intelligence services, but let's halve that. Let's rely upon the Israeli figures, and let's say half the numbers have been killed. That still means over 90% of the casualties are Palestinians, and a great many of those in the buildings are women and children. That's the reality. The documentary didn't fake the buildings. Didn't fake the deaths. So the most important thing...
Oh, so that's all right then, is it?
No. The most important thing is to recognise that, as we should recognise the appalling atrocities committed.
Sorry, Roger. No, you're not on here to talk about Palestine. You're on here to talk about the BBC, right? The BBC have faked a documentary, right?
No, they haven't faked it. Hold on.
They've been economical with the truth. They have not... They have paid £400,000, and they have not answered the question whether any of the 400,000 went to Hamas. You know, they have not revealed that the son of the Hamas operative was in fact a son of a Hamas operative, and they've altered the footage to make it look as if they didn't say they wanted to kill Jews in the jihad.
Hold on.
That's all true.
No. That's an exaggeration and misleading.
What's not true?
What I'm trying to say is that, first of all, let's recognise the most important thing, which is the horrors that have happened in Gaza.
No, that's not what you're on to talk about. No, that's not the most important thing here. The most important thing here is the BBC's duplicity and failure. Well, because I'm not going to let you come on here and talk about Palestine. You're on here to talk about the BBC.
I'm talking about the Middle East, but I'm trying to get a sense of priorities. But if you'd let me finish.
No, you're on to talk about the BBC. We've got about 4 minutes, so it's up to you.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Right. The second thing is the propaganda war going on. Both sides, Israeli government and the Palestinians. So that's what's going on. What happened in this case was the Israeli government does not allow any outside independent journalists into Gaza.
No, Gaza does not allow independent journalists into Gaza, actually. No, it doesn't. It's who controls Gaza? The Hamas controls Gaza.
I disagree with you, but never mind. Let's say...
Well, you can't disagree about facts, Roger.
I can if I don't think they are facts. But let's agree with this. Independent journalists cannot get into Gaza. So if you wish to cover it, you've got to find ways of doing it. Now, in this instance, the way they did it was risky.
It was wrong, wasn't it?
No.
It wasn't wrong. So it wasn't wrong to mask the identity.
You're trying to put words in my mouth, Mike. Let me finish. It's not wrong to try and report on what's happening there when you can't get in any other way. It's not wrong to try and represent what's happened to children there.
What are misrepresenting, though? What about that?
Yeah, what clears to happen here is, one, that the independent company have not been open and honest with the BBC, and two, the BBC has not been tough enough in scrutinising what that independent.
Yes, so who's? Well, that's now we're getting to the meat and bones of what I want to talk to you about.
No,
so
with
what's
that.
the process? How many people would have checked that before it went out on air?
Well, the problem when you're doing if it was an in-house production,
which it wasn't.
Which it wasn't. It's easier to keep control. You can decide.
Well, in this case, what would happen?
Hold on. In this case, what would happen is everybody would have a contract which says they have to report back. They would be asked, as the BBC says, they got written assurances that about the nature of the people involved, and the independent company did not tell them, which was a major mistake, and therefore the public was not told, which was a major mistake.
Well, surely they didn't ask, because surely one of the things you would do.
In that BBC
well, here's a question I would have asked, which I don't think they did ask.
No, you've just made a false statement.
No, hang on. No, I haven't said anything yet. I haven't said anything.
Said clearly in their statement, they went on various times written requests and were given assurances which aren't true.
No, yeah, but hang on. You haven't listened to my question, Roger. So you can't say that what my question is false, because what they didn't ask was whether the boy in question was connected to Hamas in any way, which is the question I would have asked. And of course he is. And if they'd had that answer come back, then they would have canned it.
Hold on. And judging by the BBC statement, they asked for written assurances.
They didn't ask who the boy was, did they? They didn't ask if he was connected to Hamas.
Well, that is not clear. But what we all agree about.
Well, they should have done.
What we all agree about is the audience was misled on a crucial element.
Yes.
And that we need to know exactly how that happened.
Yes, that's why I'm asking you.
The BBC may be misled again. But what I am saying is, be aware that a lot of this is propaganda. Why can't we concentrate on the reality of the situation?
No, because you can't. No, because the Hamas terrorist organisation is not an organisation which should be in government, right? They were voted in 2005 by the people, because they were the only people that were available to be voted in, and they've never had an election since. They're not a governmental organisation. They're a terrorist organisation. The BBC, unfortunately, doesn't even seem to think that they can say that, because they continually refer to them. They continually refer to them as a proscribed organisation by many countries in the world, including Britain.
You have to try, Mike. Russia has invaded Ukraine, right? You have to try and report from Russia inside. China does terrible things with the Uyghurs. You have to try and report from inside. The BBC's job is to try and get everywhere it can.
Well, they failed in this case, haven't they?
Unfortunately, in this case, yes, there have been real failures. But
well, they've admitted it. So no point you saying they haven't, because they've said that they made serious and unacceptable flaws, right?
Can I just recommend to anybody watching or listening to your programme that you go to the BBC statement and read it in detail?
Yeah, but this is not the first statement they made, is it? Because the first statement they put out, but more or less said that they hadn't done anything wrong, and then they had to recant that and put out another statement.
They clearly are finding out things that they should have known.
Well, that's not good enough.
No, but it isn't good enough. But what it isn't is evidence of prejudice, anti-Semitism, and all the things that what it is a real problem, which is compounded by the fact, A, you can't get independent journalists into Gaza, and secondly, that an independent company was used in this case, which is inevitably at one remove from the BBC. One of the lessons
it's not very far removed from Hamas either.
Well, that's a statement I could comment on, because I don't know.
Well, they've been asked the question, has any of the £400,000 gone to Hamas? And they haven't yet answered that question.
I don't even know.
And it's been 3 days.
Where did you get the figure £400,000 from?
£400,000 is what the BBC said they paid for the documentary.
Yeah, well, hold on a second. That's paying for producers, because the two producers were in the UK. It's paying for cameraman. You know, the average cost of a documentary is something like that. No way all that sum of money can have gone to Hamas.
You don't know. I didn't say it's all gone to Hamas. The question is, the question is, did any of it go to Hamas? We don't know the answer.
Different. You started off by saying 400,000.
I said £400,000 was the cost of the documentary. I did not say that's what may have gone to Hamas. I don't know, but they haven't answered.
People can talk about that, but most of that money would have been spent in the UK on the editing, on the producers who were here and elsewhere.
If the people edit it in the UK, then they must have been the ones that changed the subtitles to remove the word Yehuda and to remove the word jihad, because that's what they did, because they falsified the actual subtitles. Right now, if that was done in the UK by people working for the BBC, those people should be fired, in my view.
Well, we need to find out and see, but I agree with you. That is a very serious allegation and deeply worrying and needs to be looked after. But I'm just trying to explain to you that the headline suggestion that £400,000 was paid to Hamas...
Nobody said that. Nobody said that.
Some people would take that as an implication.
No,
it's not true.
£400,000 was the cost of the documentary. The question is how much of that money, if any, went to Hamas. That's the question.
I agree with you, but I think what you need to acknowledge is the BBC and you and we and all of us have to report inside very nasty regimes around the world.
Yeah. Well, I tend not to use Hamas members for reports when I go to the Middle East.
But
I tend to use people who I can trust.
You and I have asked who would go to Russia. You and I have asked who would go to China. You and I have asked who would go in a number of places in the world where the regimes are appalling, because it's important that the public knows what's going on. Now, the question is, what compromises do you strike in order to get the information out?
Well, I wouldn't do what Jeremy Bowen does, that's for sure, but that's another matter. Roger, good to talk to you. We've got to run. Former BBC presenter, it says here, Roger Bolton, who doesn't seem to think that the BBC has done anything terribly wrong. It's all not their fault. Funny that, isn't it? Coming up, after the break, we're going to speak to Elliot Keck, Head of Campaigns for the Taxpayers Alliance. We'll find out how much more money is being wasted by this bleeding government. Before that, though, how about getting some money for yourself? Time's running out to get involved in our 25 grand competition. Here at Talk, we're giving you the chance to win this life-changing amount of money for 2025. So what do you need to do to get involved? All you have to do is text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post. It's as simple as that, but time is running out. Once again, to get involved, just text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post.
18 plus, UK excluding NI. Enter by SMS for £2 plus one standard network charge by 11 p.m. on March the 3rd, 2025. Or send your name, email and contact number to £25,000 cash competition, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on March the 6th, 2025. This is a News Broadcasting Network promotion. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
Welcome back. So how about this from Gary, which is great, in East Morley. Don't you think Starmer's performance yesterday was like a scene from Fawlty Towers, the American episode where Basil comes out of the kitchen with a grovelling letter from the chef? I remember that, yeah, absolutely. I apologise profusely for what I did, and I'm very sorry, and he's very sorry, and so am I, and we fired him. Thanks very much indeed. Coming up, we'll talk to Elliot Keck. Let's get another Starmer gaff, shall we? I think this is one of mine. This is the thing. The great thing about the audience that this show has is that you all know, you all get it, right? You all know that Starmer's a complete idiot, right? A malfunctioning robotic moron. Pasta bake with ham. I'm a vegetarian. Are you? Why are you making a pasta bake with ham? I'm a vegetarian. Why are you making salmon? Tandoori salmon on a Channel 4 cooking show in May. I'm a vegetarian. You're not a vegetarian, are you, Starmer? You're just a liar. It's true. I mean, this has been going on for months, hasn't it? And now this is kind of the denouement of it all. More after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's come up to just 4 minutes to 10. We've only got a little bit of time, but Elliot Ketz here, Head of Campaigns at Taxpayers Alliance. Elliot, good to talk to you. Sorry we've only got a tiny little bit of time at the end of the show here because it's been so much fun taking the mickey out of Keir Starmer. We're talking about a UK version of Doge, I believe, this morning because... Kemi Badenoch's been asking if we could set one up. It'd be very good if we could. And you guys would be probably front and centre of any organisation that looked into what they do. We found a golf course where they've redesigned the 9th hole for 100,000 quid. We've also found about 355,000 quid being used by the University of Birmingham to open a campus in Dubai.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a golf course that really caught my eye, as you'll know as well as anybody. While we should obviously concentrate on waste in the foreign aid budget and the Whitehall budgets, it's also in council budgets that we need to be looking at waste because they're so under scrutinised. And the fact that this local council thought that the £100,000 would be best used not on libraries or street cleaning or parks or anything like that, they thought, no, let's do it on a golf course for the members of that golf course. I think is absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I mean the amount of money. I mean, I saw a story the other day about Lambeth Council apparently asking for £40 million of central government money to fix their problem in the housing department that they've got, because they've got an awful lot of social housing which apparently has been run down to such an extent that they need loads and loads of money to rescue it, and they haven't got any.
Yeah, that's right. And St Albans is a similar case. St Albans is a council where they are spending the money on the golf course. They've been talking about actually closing all the toilets in the council area, which would be obviously a disaster given it is a heavily touristed area. Yeah. They have a £2.4 million black hole, and rather than asking the members of this golf course to stump up a little bit more to pay for the renovations of the 9th hole, they're asking local residents. It's really shocking. Yeah, and I've got one here from Enfield Council as well, who are apparently trying to save 18 million quid over the coming year to balance its budget. They're going to slash spending on street cleaning. They're not going to close parks at night. They're going to do all sorts of other things in public spaces, but they want to spend £18,000 to paint a mural in one of the squares in the towns. I mean, it's just mad, isn't it? Yeah, and it just shows until local councils get to grips with the number of individuals working for them that are willing to just get out the council's credit card and spend it on whatever makes them feel good at night. We're not going to be able to crack down on council budgets and ensure we have the efficient town halls that taxpayers deserve. No, exactly right. Listen, Elliot, good to talk to you. We'll have to pick this up again next week because I'm sure there's more to discuss, but there's all kinds of lists and lists and lists of money that's being wasted. Final one, a couple of nominations for the spaceship with Katy Perry. It says here, please send Ed Siliband for space with his ukulele. Come on, surely he's got to join them. And Cliff sent me one in saying, please can you reserve a space for Terry Christian? No bad thing. Alex Phillips is here. Very good morning to you.
What is this game with blasting people into space that we don't like?
Katy Perry's going on a mission with Jeff Bezos, right? Up into space with a few select